Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Spoilercast here on Hot Gamers Only. I'm one of your hosts today, Ethan, and joining me, as always, is my good friend and co-host in all Spoilercasts, Hunter. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just swell.
It's always me and you, dude, to the bitter end. We're always just gonna be sitting here doing these Spoilercasts until the
Yep.
till the cows come home. How you feeling, man? It's been a while since we've done one of these. Was it Rebirth that was the last
I
one?
do believe it was Rebirth, which, to be fair, there haven't really been many story-based games that we're all into to do this for.
Especially this year. I think as it goes,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I started to come to the realization that I don't think this year there's been some great games this year, but I don't think it's been a potential like really a full year for video games. It's felt quite, sporadic. And then especially on narrative based games, I really haven't played a narrative game since Rebirth really on the like since to now since Double Exposure, so it's like it feels like it's been a long time. Um it's very hard to get a lot of people to play the same game all the time. It's very rare where we actually, the paths cross when we're playing something at the exact same time like this. So I do love doing these. So the Spoilercast is one of my
Yeah,
favorite ones that we get to do. They're also great because, audio listeners love them especially. They just grow over time. They just keep on trucking. It's like evergreen content, which is fantastic. Um,
yeah.
but
There's
we,
always gonna be a new Life is Strange fans.
yeah,
Somehow.
for better or worse, right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome on in, everybody. We're here. Um, talk to you about Life is Strange Double Exposure for the next who knows how long. These tend to go for a little bit. I can guarantee probably at least an hour. We'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, we're gonna be
Somewhere
yeah,
between a regular podcast time and
a
the
feature length film. Yeah,
yeah.
somewhere between a regular podcast and Gladiator 2. That's where we're aiming. Okay, like one or the other. Who knows where we'll land by the end of it. Um, all I know is they'll both have about equal historical accuracy. That's what we're going for, right? That's about
That's
as far
true.
as we'll go. Um, but yeah, we're just going to talk everything Life is Strange Exposure. We'll give you our full thoughts. We'll go break it down episode by episode, talk about what worked, what didn't. We're gonna dive into all of that. This is your spoiler warning. We will not be holding anything back. No holds barred. We will spoil every ounce of this game for you today. If you care, we have our first impressions up on the podcast services and on YouTube. So if you want to go check that out, please feel free. There'll also be a review up on hotgamersonly.com and at YouTube within the next week or so, give or take. I'm still in the middle of writing that. Um, if you want to know how well that's going, I think the first line of the summary, which I've written before a lot of the little bits, is this has been one of the hardest reviews I've ever had to write. So it's been a
Mhm.
difficult one. But it's already shaping up to be one of my favorites, I think. When you're writing something and you're just like, this one's a good one. I can tell already just from
It's
the
got the
bits.
juice.
It's got the juice because it's very personal. It's more of you know a journey of my love of this franchise and where we're heading, as much as it is a review of Double Exposure, which is quite therapeutic and it's quite interesting. So I look forward to that. That'll be out in the next week or so. Fingers crossed. Maybe in the few days. Who knows? Podcast services, you get this early, so who knows? You'll get some little sneak peeks, especially. So we'll find out. We'll find out. Um, let's dive in and start this off with what we always do, which is kind of we get like a temperature read of where we are, how we're feeling, what our overall thoughts are, where we'd kind of put it on our little made up buffoonery scale, right? Because obviously only one of us will be reviewing it at the end of the day, so who knows what the other one's thinking about. Hunter, how are you feeling now? It's been a couple of days. We both finished it about what, 4 days ago? Um,
Yeah.
to put this into perspective, we're recording this on the night of November 6th, a great night for everybody where nothing bad has happened whatsoever in the past 24 hours. Um, how are you feeling? How are you coming off 4 days later thinking about Double Exposure?
It's one of those things where it does a lot of stuff, I think, pretty solidly. But the so the phrase greater than the sum of its parts?
Yeah.
This is like whatever the reverse of that is.
Hmm.
Like, it does a lot of things really well, but they don't come together in a way that makes a whole lot of sense in the end.
Yeah. Um, you were sitting because I was talking to you about how I can't at the moment, and as of recording this podcast, writing the review, I still am not on. To be honest, there's a part of me that hates on the website that we have the number because I'm like, I feel like one number, but in my heart, I'm like, is that too harsh? I feel like because it's like the difference between a 3 or a 4 is a 6 and an 8, like a 6 and an 8 or whatever. It's stupid, right? I hate number scales. I tried to do we did it to make it simpler for people, but it's made it way harder for me to try and justify some stuff sometimes. I feel. But you were telling me that you're sitting still. You'd sit like on a 4, right? The recommended. You
Yeah, I'd
still.
give it a recommend still if you like these kind of games anyway, you know?
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm I'm still 50-50 on where I'm landing, and I think originally when I came off of it, like, hot off the presses, sitting there like 10 minutes after I'd wrapped stream up because I'd streamed all of this. You can go and watch my reaction on YouTube if you want to all of this, which
Yeah.
is a fun experience. I was like, you know, I don't know how I feel about this right now. I'm like, whatever. I went to bed and didn't really think about it. And then as I've been writing my review for Double Exposure, which the first minute of it is basically recounting history of the franchise for me and where I've kind of sat with it, it's kind of made me realize that at the start of this game, the first 3 episodes I think are fantastic. I think they're brilliant. I think they're exactly, they show how Deck Nine has evolved in making these games over the past 8 years, 7 years since Before the Storm, right? How you
Yeah.
can see the inspiration from True Colors. You can see how they've evolved it and how great they are at writing characters and weaving a mystery. And then the second half just falls flat on its face, really. And I'm not just like it's to the point where at first I was like, oh, that's a shame, waddled off, really. And then recounting, emotions and how I felt about Life is Strange, I'm like, wow, this game compared to the others hasn't really made me feel much. And what I mean by that is my gut emotion coming out of this game was I missed Max and it's nice to have Max back. And then I'm like, okay, but how did the story make you feel? And I'm like, well, the first two
Eh?
episodes, 3 episodes, I was feeling something because the plot twists at the end of episode 2 and a bit of episode 3, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. We're going places. And I just came out of it as emotionless. I didn't cry once at these, and I think I've cried at every Life is Strange game, even 2, and I don't like 2. I think I've cried at all of them at one point, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this game, and it's not because it's bad. I think the narrative of this game being bad is just wrong. I just think that they didn't land the plane in a way that resonated. I just think it's very
Yeah.
interesting for a game like this to fall flat. Um, but we'll dive into it a little bit. I don't know where I'm landing. Who knows? People of the future, did I give it a 3? Did I give it a 4? Who knows? I originally was writing the summary because I like to write my summaries first to get I do a first draft of the summary first to right after I finish the game to get pure emotions out. And then I'll write the rest of the review and then I'll rewrite the conclusion with some actual introspection and some thoughts. And originally I wrote it as a 4, and now I'm coming off of it and now I'm writing it. I'm like, the feeling's getting lower. How we feel it's a hard one. It reminds me a bit of Starfield, where I was sitting there going, I really like this game, but everybody else hates it. So where am I sitting on this? It's an interesting one. But that's what we're here to do, I guess. We're here to have a big old therapy session and dissect every little episode, what we loved, what we didn't. So if you're here for that, come on in. If you're expecting a massive bashing of the game or whatever, because I see a lot of the Life is Strange fandom at the moment, at least the vocal minority on Twitter, very angry and very threatening about devs and the story and the narrative in general.
Oh
So I'm just
god.
saying, if you're here for a good
For
bashing,
sure.
that's not what we're here to do, okay? The summary is, even if I am feeling slightly conflicted, I still liked it. And Hunter
Yeah.
is the same. Um, we have our issues, and it's not with the developers or anything like that. It is just how the story played out. Um, I'll also just because it's so we both chose Arcadia Bay and Life is Strange 1. So if you're here for a Bay opinion, again, you're gonna have to go to somebody else, I'm afraid, because I think we both
Yeah,
chose the same decision. So
yeah. Sorry if we both liked our narrative to have integrity in the first game.
where's the line? Where's the line? Where's the line? I wrote a really good line in the review. I'm
uh,
just gonna leak this stuff. Who cares? Not even out. It's my thing to. I have a paragraph about the choice that I made because I thought it was uh yeah, as much as I love Chloe, the cyclical narrative of time catching up and to time catching up with you and to cherish the extra time you're given has always moved me far more than sacrificing the entire town for love. That is, and I still stand by that. I still think that the narrative makes way less sense if you keep Chloe around. That's just me. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, there you go. If you're expecting a massive hate train, you're not gonna get it. If you're expecting Chloe Max shipping banter, whatever, what we think about that. Bashing the
Not
devs for
gonna
fucking with
happen.
that. Not gonna get that either. If you're here for a lot of looking for the diamonds in the rough, then you've come to the right place. If you're looking for a more optimistic, introspective look at this game, I think that you've come to the right place here. We're not just going to be laughing and bashing it the whole time. There's a lot to like in this game, and I think that's what's made it really hard to review, to talk about it. Is there's so much good here. There's just a lot of mediocre in between as well and throughout it. So, um, let's just dive straight into it. Right? Let's dive straight into it with chapter 1. Timestamps are below, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to skip to a particular chapter. I won't judge, although, what the fuck? You don't want to hear what I thought about episode 1? You don't want to, I know Square Enix ruined the whole chapter in the trailer, but, you could at least show up for it. We have to
Classic
play
Square
for it.
Enix.
Um, I thought it was a pretty
You
solid,
know,
yeah.
I would like for them to, in one of these Life is Strange games, make it very obvious who the victim of whatever the mystery is gonna be. Who it, and then I want them to play it like they played the whole marketing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth instead,
Yeah,
where they're just
that's,
being super cheeky about it.
I would even, I do think it's funny. Okay, ready? Full spoilers. 3, 2, 1. Obviously, with the whole Max tagline and stuff at the end, I do think it'd be really funny if they did just go into this again and it was like Max is in a different place now, and then all of a sudden her new best friend died. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Like, I just feel like it's like, is this what we do now in Life is Strange? Is just episode 1, someone has to die, and that is true for every Life is Strange game, I believe, except maybe Before the Storm. Yeah, except Before the Storm. Even in Life is Strange 2, someone dies as well. So it's like it happens in every one of them, and I'm like, man, I wish if it. I wish you either wouldn't do it, or if you were gonna do it again, don't tell us, because especially with here's the thing. I think to an extent, True Colors, it's the crux of the narrative, right? It's carrying you through.
Yeah,
Daffy, in all the marketing, was led to believe it was the crux of everything. In fact, I remember, and this kind of annoys me looking back at it, that it was kind of the premise you were given was trying to solve a murder mystery in one timeline by
to
going to
prevent it.
another where it hasn't happened yet. Was like the
Yeah.
thing was, and it's like that. And there's no real realization of that ever in this game, which is kind of a bit of a disappointment, really.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
Now that you
Um. But let's dive back straight to the beginning. Episode 1 opens up. Derelict bowling alley. Creepy location. Uh, were you a fan of the mascot, Hunter, or were you creeped out by the mascot?
oh, the little bowling ball with
Mm-hmm.
the pin horns. I
Yeah.
thought it was neat.
I thought he was adorable until chapter 5, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh god, hope these don't jump out at me. um, but yeah, so it starts off in an abandoned bowling alley. You take your control back of Max Caulfield, now 28. It's been 10 years since the original Life is Strange in this timeline. December 2023. I had to get all of my dates right because I was like, oh yeah, Life is Strange didn't take place in 2015. It was 2013, and we're just merge it all
yeah.
up. Um, it's a very interesting start because I don't know about you, Hunter, but my initial feeling was you get into the game, control Max Caulfield again. Oh, the camera's a bit off. Let me change the settings because the camera was way too slow for some reason. Then I get back into the game, and the first thing I want to do is just press the touchpad and go snooping in the phone. That's the first thing that I want to intrinsically
Oh yeah,
do
you have to wait a little
is
bit to do
catch
that.
up. Yeah, because I'm like, I haven't seen, I'm a massive fan of Max. Max is one of my favorite characters of all time. I love her to death. And so the first thing I want to do is, okay, bestie, what the fuck's been happening for 10 years? So I'm like, get me in the book, get me in the diary, get me in the. And there's like nothing. There's a couple of texts, but like nothing else. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? Like, there's no text because it was just like you press the thing and it's got your menu, like you explore the
Yeah.
bowling area. I'm like,
I was sitting there like, well, I was expecting a half hour of reading before I take a,
hmm,
you know, 10 steps here.
yeah. I was like, where's my lore? I need to know. Um, but it's a nice little scene. It's a fun little introduction, really. You get to know Safi a bit as a character, just as a personality. As you're going around, and for the most part, Max is Max, right? She hasn't changed. I think it works out for the better, to be honest. I like that she hasn't really, Max is still Max after everything that's happened. She is still extremely, uh, it's weird. The game almost tries to sometimes make her act more extroverted, and I'm like, that just feels very wrong. Like every option I get, every time I get the opportunity, I'm
Yeah.
like, reel it back in, okay? You're making her a bit too open to things sometimes. I'm like, reel her back. She's still extremely kind of goofy. And I like it, Hannah Tell's back and it feels like she's never left that role really. She has just kind of hopped straight back into it and hasn't skipped a beat. And I think to me she's the highlight of this video game. Like to me,
Yeah, I would say that she turns in a really good performance here. Really,
I think it's a
uh,
better performance than the original game, to be honest with you. I think that
well,
I know it's not
yeah.
hard. I love Max for better or worse. There are plenty of lines, but I also think plenty of those lines, the fault isn't with Hannah, it is the writing that's the fault in a lot of those.
That's also very true.
But I loved her performance here. It was great. It really does feel like an older Max. And I'm like, which is, it's difficult to kind of comprehend in a way because it's like obviously it should just be an older Max. How hard is that? But in video games, we don't usually get this and we don't get it very well. Like when characters come back, even if it's been 2 years, they can be completely different characters. Like it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
especially in older games, you come back and oh, what's that? Leon Kennedy's got a completely different voice and is completely acting differently in this one. Oh, that's weird. It's just like you just kind of
Now he acts like Dante from the game that was originally going to be his game.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? It's very uh janky. And I just realized Kyle's messaging me. And I don't want to be a hater, but I'm just going to set myself to do not disturb because I don't remember if I've got the notification set off. So if you heard Discord notifications, no, you didn't. Shh. Um, yeah. So it was great to have her back because it did feel like an actual established kind of um step forward in her character. She did feel like Max still, but she didn't feel like it was them still trying to cling on to her 18-year-old self.
No,
She
no,
still has a
she
lot
acts
of
like
goofy
the kind
lines,
of
but there's a lot less cringe dialogue in this game, which is
it's the
a
kind of
pleasant
goofy
surprise.
stuff that I could imagine, anyone that I talk to or anyone our age thinking in their own inner monologue, you know. Like,
100%. I
yeah.
I I think like again, going back to the review, I think one of the reasons that I kind of identify a lot with Max is one, we're very similar in terms of inner monologue. I am 100% a Max, where it's like there's a line from Safi later on if you sit down in episode 5 and do a reflection while you're in the nightmare, and Safi will be like, "Are you always doing this? Are you always inner monologuing?" And I'm like, yeah, and I do this in my own life as well. I'm very much one of those people that just has a constant inner monologue that's always not wanting to shut up. It's why I don't sleep very well. But it's like just having her come back and just be the same person, just evolved. I'm like, oh, we can do it. As video games, we can do it, and and the evolution just doesn't have to be straight to dad. You know what I mean? Like that's the only evolution that video games
Yeah,
does. So it's nice to have somebody age up and isn't just immediately a dad. you know? like a parental figure. It's kind of nice. It was kind of refreshing. And I liked Safi. The first scene was pretty cool. Like, it's pretty interesting. One thing I will say is, you have skipping forward ever so slightly. We'll get back to the first scene in the snapping turtle in a second. But I think it's very interesting that the game is so heavily focused on Safi, but every single moment with Moses, when Moses is introduced, I'm like, I fucking love Moses in this game, dude. I genuinely
Yeah, he's
might be
really
my
well done.
favorite. I'm like, I love him so much, and every time they're like, "Oh, but Safi," this, I'm like, you know what? Stay dead. This is my new homie now. My new best friend's Moses. I love him. He's great. Um, I think characters were really well done in this game. I really really
Definitely.
do. And I think I don't want to hate on Don't Nod, because Don't Nod do fantastic work, and I adore the original Life is Strange. But one of the things that I do prefer in the more recent Deck 9 games are secondary characters and just characterizations in general. When you compare it to the original, and you've got like Nathan Prescott and Victoria Chase, and her little clique. Yes, they're all memorable, but they're almost memorable for the wrong reasons at times.
Well,
Whereas
I would
it's
wager that Victoria is memorable, and as a group, her clique is memorable. I couldn't really tell
tell you
you
what their
which.
names are, and it's
Yeah,
more for infamy because they're just annoying and bratty and very
yeah, like the
very
only sub
teenager, but
character
also yeah
that isn't like important for the first game that I could tell you is like Dana, the one that wasn't
yeah.
horrible, who was planning the
Or
Halloween
you've got
party or
you've got the
whatever.
other teachers, like you've got and the janitor. You've got like all these characters, and they're interesting enough, but you can't like it's like there's no real worth to them there. Where it's like when you meet characters in Deck 9 games, like I love like all the members of Haven Springs, right?
Yeah,
All have their own vibe, and they're not just kind of caricatures of different archetypes of a character, right? The asshole jock or the popular kid. It's like you have them, but they're more evolved, and you actually, when you get to know them more, there's more underneath them, except for Victoria Chase going, you know what, if you hand me that towel, I'll not be an arsehole for you for one scene. In one scene I won't be an arsehole. you know um and I think it carries over here, right? When you talk about all these secondary characters, when you talk about Gwen and even the probably the weakest character in my opinion with like Lucas, right? It's like
oh yeah,
even then I'm still like there are layers to you which I'm like I can appreciate, and you feel like a more well-rounded character than an archetype that was then put in a character shell ready to be kind of pushed into the story. Um I really do like the characters in this game. I wish more were done with them, especially like a lot of them I think are very nuanced and then have nothing, like Gwen's a very
and then
nuanced
have
character
nothing
and
to
then
do.
nothing ends up happening with her really. And then the timelines merge and you get the worst of both. It's get to the ending, but it's like
Yeah,
at least at the start I was like you're setting everything up right because there's so many interesting characters to see and so many, interesting stories to discover. Um Snapping turtle time. Why did they introduce Amanda so quickly? I feel like it was a bad
I
call.
think introducing her was fine. Insisting that you flirt with her then or
And
be
that's the
locked out
lock
of the
point. That's the
romance
lock point.
is the issue there.
I know we jokingly and lovingly like call these games like the gay games, right? They're like one of the most prominent LGBT game franchises, right? But the fact that this game was like it's decision time 25 minutes in, I'm like I haven't even talked to you yet. Can I please can
It's
we
like
have a couple of can you do this in episode 2, please? I I didn't romance anybody in this game, and I'm like when I got to episode 3, I'm like, I'm still happy that I didn't, but I would have been more open to have romancing Amanda if the opportunity had come about in episode 3 instead of episode 1. Like that
yeah.
just kind of especially after they hit you with the two time if they you've got that, and then just before that you've what was your big decision, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the person that either died or we broke up.
Yeah. Oh man.
Do we talk
Yeah,
about
it's
that? I feel like that's quite
I
funny.
mean, yeah, it's pretty hysterical if that's the other version of reality.
And I mean, there were plenty of leaks about this game from a couple of years ago, where originally the basic pitch of this was it was all based off of the Arcadia Bay ending. Um, a lot of people from what I've heard, the rumblings, a lot of people were surprised when they found out that both options were actually available, because for the longest time this game didn't have that and it was just Arcadia Bay. And I stand by, you can 100% feel it in the game.
Yeah.
I replayed I replayed a good chunk of episode 1 with the Chloe timeline, just because I wanted to at least get a feeling for that when writing the review, of kind of going, okay, because in the entire time in my head playing this game, I was like, how the fuck does this make any sense in the other one? Let me go over. And I can tell you that it doesn't feel like it makes much sense, to be honest. It's like they try and make it do with it, but to me, it really does feel like they should have picked a lane and just have gone with it. And I honestly, with the way that the fan base has reacted to that choice, I almost feel like it would have been less controversial to have done that. Because people
Yeah,
really did not
probably.
like it. I feel like it would have been a much better thing to go, hey, if you chose that, you've got the comic series and all of that jazz that, Square has been making. They go and have a happy life, happy ending, off they go. Because
Yeah,
this
I guess it
game,
would feel a little less insulting to just have him. Oops.
it was for nothing, am I right? Is that where the trauma comes from? Because you feel like it was for nothing? Like, I don't know. Um, a lot of us were thinking that, oh, I bet you the way they do it is Chloe's in the other timeline, whatever. If your timeline has Chloe, the other one won't. No difference whatsoever. That's the first thing I checked, and I was like, oh, Joyce is still doom posting on Facebook. It must be the same timeline. But yeah, it just kind of, and I think it's a running theme with this game. Really, is this game always feels like in its choices that there's a right and a wrong answer,
Yeah,
which you
not
don't
really much
usually
of a.
get in these games. Like the first 2 episodes, I thought were a lot better with their choices. You had little ones like the one later with Loretta, right? Where it's like, I'll call you out. And she was
Yeah.
like, bet. And then she actually goes and fucks off. And, you're like, oh God, maybe I did make. There was some fun little interesting things like that. The end of this game literally is like what I thought would be a cutscene. And they were like, yeah, just stick a choice in there. Fuck it. Who knows? Yeah, and who cares? Just stick a choice. What will happen? Um, I just feel like they should have gone with their gut more. I feel like it's almost, they
Yeah.
feel like they're trying to play it too safe. I don't know if you got this feeling, Hunter, when you were playing, but it feels like in their head, there was like a little birdie in Square Enix that was like, don't do this. You can't do that. Play it safe. Do this. Do that. Don't mention that. What the hell
Which
are you on
is
about?
hilarious considering where we end up at the end
Yeah.
too. Is the funniest part. Why not? Like for being a game that piles on so many layers of different things where they
Almost
just
too
keep
many.
adding stuff.
Yeah.
It is still somehow played pretty safe in a lot of instances. Where it's like, why introduce
Mm.
this if there wasn't going to be a point?
Yeah. Like, it feels like, again, I feel like they just they made it a aesthetic choice where they were like, oh yeah, whatever, you're ending to Life is Strange 1. It matters. It really doesn't. It feels like they made it for one and then they just sugarcoated the other one on top of it. Because it's like a lot of things don't really make as much sense when you look at it from the other lens. Like Max going through when Sophie gets shot, going through the trauma of it again. In the other
Yeah.
universe, yeah, it happened, but she saved it and she's got like, is the implication that, oh, the town was destroyed? I don't want to destroy another town for this? Like, is that what he's thinking? She's like, oh, I've got to kill another couple hundred people to save my best friend
Yeah, in
again. I
which
don't
case
want
you
it.
could
Like,
just be like, well, bye.
and there's a line in
It
episode
was nice knowing
4.
you, Safi.
There's a line in episode 4, right, of Max, on trying to talk to Sophie when the storm's there, and she's like, she's just sitting there going, you'll regret this, like, with whatever's happening with the storm, of it destroying the town and stuff like that. And I'm like, how does this play in the other side? Like, how does it genuinely play? I just feel like you were never going to please everybody with this game, really. So I feel like you should have just committed. The comics committed. The comics went, you know what, you guys love shipping them so badly, we'll just do a comic series of them. There you go. Just kind of make that decision. I feel like that would have solved so many problems. It wouldn't have fixed the fucking end of this video game, but I would have at least gone, you know what? At least all the morals and everything are in line, and we can kind of roll with that, right? Um, but yeah, I like the start of this game. I think it's a bit of a slow burn. I was expecting it to get into get into it a bit quicker.
I think it does a good job at establishing Max's role within the school pretty well in the first couple of scenes there.
It was better than the first game. God, the amount of hours that I spent playing that game going, so is Blackwell a university or is it a high school or she's 18. I can't figure out where we are here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I still get, because again,
Sometimes I
research.
still don't remember because
It's
like
a
there's dorm
special, it's a
rooms and
special, it's
everything
a
too.
special high school that is just the senior year of high school or something like that. I'm like, you should have just made it university. You should have just made it university. Would have been opened up you opened up a whole can of worms here. Don't know. What are you doing here? Come on. Um, they were like, Blackwell is just a senior year high school. I'm like, that doesn't work like that, bitch. Come on, pick a lane. Are they like? It was as if they were like, we don't want it's because of the subject matter. They were like, we need the characters to be 18 because of the subject matter. And I'm like, fair play. There's a thing called
I
college. Have
mean,
you heard of that?
you could have just made them like 20 or
Yeah,
something
I'm like, have
too.
you
I
heard of
don't think that.
college? Yeah. It's like, they were like, it just so to have her just be like, yeah, I'm I'm a resident at Caledon University. I'm like, easy, simple. You love to see it. I'm not going to question everybody else because fuck me, that is too complicated. Try to think. Okay, so
Oh,
Moses
dude,
is a
the
teacher,
way
I
that
think, and
that is
What is
one thing
I still
about
don't know what's
all of
Sophie's role at
this.
this. What is Sophie's role as a university? Like, what is she doing?
One thing about this setting is I don't know what the deal with everybody's job situation
Hmm.
is who isn't like obviously in their 40s.
Yeah, like obviously like Gwen and Lucas. I'm like, okay, tick tick, got you. And then it's like, all the students. I'm like, okay, I assume you're all undergrad. That's where I'm assuming. I'm assuming Loretta and Justin and all those characters are all undergrad, right? What's her name? Diamond. Um, that's my assumption.
Yeah.
But also, Diamond is acting like she's wants Vin's role, and Vin is working there. He's not even a fucking student. He is the leader of Abraxas, so I'm like, or are you a postgrad? I don't know. And I know Moses is probably like, I think he's researching, so I think he's either postgrad or just after. And I'm like, I have no clue what Sophie's doing. I really have no clue. And the game doesn't care because they'll tell me everything about Sophie except what the fuck is going on with her life right now. So, you know, um, it's like it's crazy just trying to remember all of this. And I feel like a bio, like on the phone you can go through and you can read what's happening with every character. I think
Except it's only relevant
name,
to the
age,
information in the
job
case.
description. Yeah, name,
Yeah.
age, and job description would have been fantastic. Like, what is their role here? Almost like like a crime scene board of if we've got suspects, what are their details? What's the basic things we need to know?
Yeah, yeah.
That would have been nice. I also slight little complaint that I have. We'll get all of the gobbledygook, little nitpicks about like stuff like the UI. I wish there were more journal entries. I feel like this game cheapened out on the journals. Because like I feel like every other game has like 30 or something, and this one's like got like 18, and I'm like, you get like
Yeah,
two an
yeah,
episode. I'm like,
it was
there were some really good pieces
it
of art. There's some really nice
yeah,
artwork
there
in
are some
there.
really
There's
good
some
artwork.
really creepy pages as well where I turned it, I was like, oh god. Um, I think episode 5 is very controversial because it tries to go back. It goes back to that nightmare kind of sequence attempt, but on the phone there's some really creepy shit when you're doing that, and I'm like, I really appreciate when you know developers go out of their way to make the whole experience like that. It reminds me of like the Scarecrow Nightmare missions in Arkham Asylum where they make the fake game over screen, and they do all the
Yeah.
they go out of their way to do stuff that you don't necessarily see or need to do. I kind of appreciate that.
It commits to the bit everywhere you look,
Hmm.
not just where you're supposed to look.
Yeah, 100%. But let's talk. So by this point, you're in the observatory. You're hanging out with your homies, and what do you know? There's a nice little You have like the nice little
meteor
moment with the
shower.
meteor shower and the button and all of that stuff. The bottle cap. Um,
Did you
yeah,
manage to give her the bottle cap?
yes, I did manage to give her
Ah,
the bottle
all
cap.
right. So my inner, um,
I
I
gave it
didn't
her, but then
because
I said,
I
you
wanted.
owe me." I didn't. She didn't tell me the
Yeah.
secret. I was like, "You owe me."
You see, I figured that what I picked wasn't gonna work, but it was just too funny. I put it
What?
in the snowball.
Oh, that's funny. No, I did the
I'm like, this
obvious.
isn't gonna work, but I'm gonna do
I
it.
did the obvious thing where it was like, "That's her favorite candy box," and I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
stick the candy in the box. There you go, Bob's your uncle. Get it in there.
I,
Get her
I
done."
figured that would be the answer, but the snowball thing was too funny of a proposition.
Yeah. Uh,
Mm.
but then we have that nice scene. I was like, "That's cool." And then Sophie gets her call, and I'm like, "Oh no, she's got a call. It's time for her to go and hit Square Enix jail and die." Okay, like that's it's the time.
Yep.
So off she goes, and she just walks off. Right? She's just like, "Okay, I'm off. Goodbye." And I'm like, "Really? Like, no one's gonna go. Do you want us to, walk you home?" Like, again, it's very. I find the whole situation very confusing because again, I thought there was going to be a point, especially when you get later in the game. Alternate history Max was alternate universe Max was my first prediction. I was like, I bet you there's a
Oh,
point in this
yes.
game where we play as the other Max and we actually experience that from the other point of view.
That would have been cool too.
Explain everything. Okay, what was the
Yeah.
reason and all that? Never got it. Again. I'm like, you do you, I guess. Anyway, so she walks off. You're like, I better go and check up on her because the storms are brewing. What the hell could be happening? Let's get moving. Max gets a nosebleed, doesn't she? At this point, I think is it
Oh
migraine and
yeah.
nosebleed?
I think it was a
Um,
headache. Yeah,
yeah,
because that's what came first. I don't think she got the nosebleed until after she had opened the door.
yeah. Um, so yeah, she gets a headache, and there's the weird, creepy owl, which I still don't know what the owl was. Like, did they ever explain the owl either? The owl talks to you at one point. Did you get that?
I don't think I got the owl to talk to me.
Oh, that was creepy as fuck. Like, one thing I do want to give this game massive praise for is its atmosphere. This is the creepiest Life is Strange
It's
game, and
the
it's not even fucking close. There are many a
I would
time
say that's its
where,
strongest point. Probably
yeah,
is its tone.
yeah, 100%. Um, and I was sitting there, and I was like, the owl talks to you at one point when you pick up one of the fake photographs, and it's like it's a picture of the owl, and you just hear it going, who, and then it's like, who did it? And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it was like the cringiest line ever, but it was spoken in a way I was like, that's fucking creepy, actually. Fair play. No explanation for the owl either. Still don't like that. Bear mugs in the tree, like like just like so much stuff where I'm like,
Yeah.
just sorry, audio listeners. I'm just doing a massive shrug where I'm,
Yeah, he's just ah.
what, what is the point? Um, But anyway, you go up to the cliffside and you're like, oh, you go up to the outlook and you're like, oh, dun dun dun. Sophie's dead.
A
She's been
body
shot.
has been
A body
discovered.
has been discovered. Yeah. Actually, that doesn't play until the detective finds it because he's the third person. So that's just um, what a dickhead. But yeah, Sophie's body's found.
Yeah.
She's shot, and what I don't know if you got onto because we were talking. You were like you made a note of it, shot in the chest or whatever, shot in the lower abdomen,
Oh
I
my
think it is.
god. Yeah.
Um, just a little fun thing that I recognized later. Exact same place where Chloe was shot.
Oh. You see, I wasn't really.
And I was
I just
like, yeah.
realized it was like the chest region there. I wasn't really like hyper
Well, I assume
focusing
that's what they
on
were going for because
when.
it's like in the exact same
Yeah.
space. So I'm like, it's got. I think the assumption is like it's a similar kind of bullet wound to
Yeah.
Chloe, and I'm like, oh, who did it and how did they get in and out and all that jazz and Moses comes up and is like, "Oh God, what's happened?" And then I genuinely was like, it fades to black, and I was like, if that's the end of the episode, I'm fucking rioting because that's a Squarey and it's classic at this point, you know, True Colors. I was like, don't do it, don't do it, and thankfully they didn't. And you end up back at the house. Nice
Yeah,
house. I would
it
be
is
a
a nice
resident at
house.
university if I got that crib like that. Jesus, that's like I'd never leave. Like, that's the most bougie job of all time if you get to just chill in that
Yeah,
house.
just take pictures and
Hmm.
live in a cabin.
Teach a couple of students. Just all you have to do is walk up and just every so often just go, "Hey, Reggie, you're not that bad." Pat on the back, and he's like, "Oh, thanks." I'm like, "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the free crib. Thank you, though. I appreciate it." Um, but yeah, you get to do a bit of a mope, and this is like the first time you actually get access to everything. You get access to your diary. You get access to your texts. You get access to everything at this point. It's all open, and there's a load of This is the point where, for me anyway, a lot of the joy started coming in as a fan of Life is Strange 1, checking all the news feeds, seeing what I can find about
Yeah,
different characters, digging some bits and pieces up,
seeing what
right?
cameos are in the from the other game are present.
And I'm not gonna lie to you, I hate the era that we're in to an extent. He says as he has his favorite thing about this game, which is living with Max again for a while. Is I do kind of hate this kind of over reliance that we have at the moment on nostalgia and just going back to what works all of the time. It's why I'm kind of hesitant on the future of the franchise after the ending of this game. But I was kind of disappointed at the end of the day of what we actually got in terms of looking back. And I kind of understand it from Max's perspective is she has not been back to Arcadia Bay. She has basically been not necessarily ignoring, but trying to put that behind her, lock it away, throw it, mental lock, stick it in the back of her mind, doesn't want to. And,
Yeah,
you want to do that with a lot of trauma, right? It makes 100% make sense. It especially makes sense if if you sacrifice your best friend to do so. Just saying, just saying.
yeah, it's true. If you,
Although you would also be feeling trauma if you were like, I was stupid. I killed a bunch of people for a girlfriend that I broke up with. Like, I guess you could also play it that way.
yeah, you would be feeling a lot of guilt, and it would explain
But
a
also,
lack
of
of a
course, she
lot of
wouldn't have been back
people.
to Arcadia Bay because it's a fucking, like,
Yeah,
it's a ghost town now. So, of course, like, makes 100% sense. What does she say at the end? When Moses says at the end of the game, do you think you'll ever go back to Arcadia Bay? Just say the other one. Doesn't exist anymore, mate. Sorry.
I'm gonna rebuild it.
That was the speech that we didn't hear. Um,
Yeah,
gonna build a great town. No
we have the
tornadoes.
technology.
No tornadoes.
Uh,
Oh, happy 2024, everybody. Um,
uh,
4 more years. So yeah. But I was kind of disappointed, really. And again, writing my review. Where the fuck is there's one passing mention to both of these characters, and it's in the fucking final episode. Kate and Warren. Where the fuck are the references to either of them
Not
in this
only is it
game?
the final episode, but it's in like the wacky town messing with your head part of the episode too. Like no actual tangible mention of
And Kate
them.
just sends a nice message, even in Nightmare Land.
Yeah,
I'm like, what
because
the?
she's incorruptible.
And then Max says something along the lines of, "You deserve, you deserve better." Because again, they can't determine whether you kept her alive or not.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I kind of understand not showing because again, did you save Kate? Did you not save Kate? I'm also saying though that if you are the kind of Life is Strange fan to read every fucking text in this video game like a demon, like I am, chances are you probably did save Kate because you were somebody that was on it, the entire time. So,
Yeah.
but Warren gets this very weird, like he gets this weird text message that came up, right, and then Max says something along the lines of, you don't talk to what like I haven't talked to Warren in a long time or something like that. And I'm like, you gonna explain why? Like at all?
Also, like that text message, I feel like kind of did him dirty a little bit because like people joke about him having having like mild stalker
Mm.
tendencies in the first game, and I feel like they were like, ah, that's a joke that people like to say. Let's make that what he is in this. Uh,
And I feel bad because people did. romance Warren who did, and if you play that, if that's your version of Max, then you got shafted even more than the fucking Chloe fans out there, because you literally got nothing, not a crumb for you, Warren fans, the few of you that are out there. But I did feel bad. Like, I really felt bad, especially because, and I kind of hate this, and I'm so glad that the game did give Max. I said this in our first impressions. I really am glad that they gave her, even though I don't really like him that much, especially not as a romantic interest, but they gave her a male romance as well, because I feel like, Alex, they did such a great job with Alex in True Colors,
Yeah.
where, she's bi, she has a romance option for both, and they're both perfect and they're great, and I would not swap them for the world. They're fantastic romance options. Love them both to death. They're great. But then Max is kind of, let's just, for bad, for some people I don't blame him. Let's erase Warren from the timeline, let's just forget Warren exists. But then I think people try to do that with the I don't like Warren, it goes to, that means Max is gay now. Like, and then it's like people forget
Yeah.
that, there are a lot of people that, she makes, and I felt uncomfortable when you read the book and she was like talking about the hot teacher, right? With Jefferson, with that weird, that creepy
Yeah.
first page. And I'm like, really hot? I'm like, oh yeah, I guess she did have a kind of had a crush on him at the start. Kind of forget that, right? And it's like, I'm glad they didn't erase any of this. The fact that she is bi and the fact that these are, I'm like, just a shame you erased the other romance option entirely to the point where there's not even a text or I'm not asking for much. I'm just like, anything, just literally anything. I don't care. Just like, just a friendly text or something here or there, or him commenting on a photo that you've took during your
Yeah.
adventure.
Even
Something.
just having instead of Victoria seemingly being the only person from the first game to have like the Facebook posts or whatever, I don't know, take a few of hers out, put a couple of the other characters in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. It was very kind of, I don't know. It was just kind of, it just felt very off to me that there was no reference of anything. The thing they did with Joyce as well, like breaking Joyce up with David, I'm like, hey, listen, David was a bit of an arsehole. But not only did they try and give him a bit, especially at the end of Life is Strange 1, they tried to give him a bit of a redemption arc with how heroic he was to try and save Max and all that jazz, went out of his
Yeah,
way.
yeah, like he was a
But in
jerk,
Before
but
the
he was
Storm, Deck 9, the developer of this game, went out of their way to try and make, because he's in Before the Storm. And one of the issues with like the canon is Max can be a lot nicer with David in Before the Storm than she ever was with him in the original, right? So he comes off as, because Deck 9 are like, we know that people know that at heart he's not that big of an asshole. They try and play him down in Before the Storm, and I'm like, okay, so even in Deck 9 world, they tried to play him down as a more likable character, and then they just shaft him? I'm like, Life is Strange 2,
messed
they're
up.
still together. Like, there's a little reference there, here and there. I'm like, why? That just seems like such a pointless thing to change. It's as if to guilt trip Max even more, to go, Joyce is just sending you messages going, you're the only person I have left in my life. And Max is like, thanks, Joyce, bye. Like, every time. It's just,
Yeah.
I just wish there was more. I really wish, and who knows? Like, maybe in the future.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get more, and we're gonna be like, oh, sorry, we asked.
Warren's in prison for stalking for 25 years.
Warren
David's
is
a
gonna.
MAGA fan, dude. He's right in
Oh my
there.
god, Warren is gonna. He'll have his own special power, and it's gonna be invisibility.
Uh, I thought you were gonna say he's got his own special power and it's the Joe Rogan experience. I'm like, oh god, even worse, dude. Oh no,
Oh.
he's one of them.
Mm.
I it, his I don't know. I feel like people who are gonna buy Double Exposure are fans of the original. This isn't really an entry point, really, for you to hop in. I don't think anyway. I think this would be a terrible entry point to Life is Strange, really. Um, it's a game made for people who played Life is Strange 1 and Before the Storm, and there's no references. I don't think there's a single reference to Before the Storm. I don't think there's a single. Is there a single reference to Rachel?
No.
And I'm just like, she's got a pinboard up in her room of all the photos of the places she's been and the people she's met, and there's a photo of Chloe, but there's no photo of anybody else from Arcadia Bay, and there's fucking photos of dickhead Lucas on the wall, and I'm like, you got a photo of the fucking teacher you hate on your wall, but you don't have one of Kate or Warren or even Victoria Chase. I don't care, just somebody that I can go, oh, I know that person. It's from that thing, and then I can point and smile. You know, like,
Yeah, like the Leonardo DiCaprio
yeah,
meme.
oh, I know that one. Yeah. It's my favorite character, dude. It's my favorite. It's the janitor guy. It's the weird, creepy janitor
Yeah.
guy who actually was Samuel, who was actually quite nice.
Yeah, shout out to Samuel. He was cool.
Mm, he was the homie. Um, but that's like my biggest disappointment is reading the comments. I always was going to the comments, and they were always from these random fucking students I didn't give a shit about. I'm like,
Yeah, students who didn't have like I guess if you listened to some of the ambient dialogue, you might have heard their names if you listened long enough, but
yeah,
they would only be identified as personality type student, other personality type student in the subtitles. So,
yeah. I just kind of wish there was more of it. And it's like, it's very rare in these kinds of games where I am wishing for more of it. Sometimes I wish that games spend less time reveling on the past and actually just try to move forward. But I think a game like this, where the idea of trauma is so central to it, of Max having to go through something so similar again and keeping it bottled up inside, the fact that they don't really do anything with that other than go, oh no, the storm again, is like,
yeah, there's like a lack of actual confrontation with the past there. It's just kind of
there's no avoidance either. Like, it would make far more sense if there were photos of Rachel Amber and stuff like that she does find in her old memories box, and she's like, I don't want to talk about that, or I just don't want to. You know, there's the scene later in episode 3 where Chloe's photo's on the table. I'm like, oh god, what the fuck's gonna happen here? We're gonna have a big kind of confrontation about this eventually, and nothing really comes up again. Um, but she's sitting there, she's grieving. I think it's a nice scene. You got Amanda who shows up and brings you
oh, she
food, which
brings you
is
food. That's
again, I'm
nice.
like, this is, peak girlfriend material here. It's a shame they've introduced you 20 minutes into the episode, and not only are we still in the mopey period of still talking about how we lost Chloe, but we've also just lost another best friend, so I feel like this is really a bad time to have another romance. Like, Amanda, save it for later, please.
Yeah.
Um, but nice scene. And then you go off to explore, try and Max decides that once again, because nothing wrong happened last time, it's time to step into the detective shoes and start investigating the town, mate. Let's get some ideas. What happened? Um, Something about a book deal. Blah blah blah. Let's get moving.
Yeah.
And so it's time to go and start snooping. The thing that Max loves to do. To be fair, there's a really funny text message or something. There's like, it's on the post or something like that, and it's, someone mentions about Max snooping, and then Victoria Chase replies to it going,
Oh
see,
yeah,
old
yeah.
habits die hard or something like that. And I'm like,
It was
that's
like
so good.
she took a picture of one of Gwen's little office knickknacks
Yeah,
without like Gwen's say so.
yeah.
So Gwen commented, "Hey, I don't remember okaying this," and then Victoria had that response.
Yeah. Which is quite funny. Again, just
It's
little cute nods like
hilarious that
that.
she has the inclination to do this snooping stuff still without the benefit of rewind
Yeah,
powers.
because you think she would have learned a lesson. Like, it went badly
Yeah.
without time travel. Like, with time travel powers, never mind without. Right?
Yeah, you don't get a second chance.
And to be honest, I do, again, I wish there was more, you know, more difficult choices to make this time round, because she doesn't have a rewind. And I think that would have been such an interesting take, because, at the end of every major choice in Life is Strange 1, you have that little bit of a monologue with Max where she's like, oh God, did I make the right decision? Maybe I should go back. And
Yeah.
I would have loved to have had an instinctual kind of thing of her going, oh, that was really bad. Maybe I should. And I'm like, oh, fuck, yeah, I'm stuck with this, aren't I? Like, just kind of like, it just kind of feels like, again, those choices don't matter so much. So Max is just kind of just breezing through everything, just going, yeah, you know what? Restraining order or no restraining order? Who cares? Like, throw it up
To
in the
be
air.
fair, in the context of like playing the
Mhm.
first game, when you made all of those decisions and you got her saying that, it very much just felt like them poking you, being like, "Hey,
Hey, do you want to go see the
go
other
on it
option?
if you
Yeah,
want." Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Do you
that's
want
what
to?
that felt like to me.
I
So
just wish there
I
was like, I just
understand
wish
how it
that,
would
yeah,
be.
I just wish there was one, when, we're
Yeah,
gonna
like
talk about it.
just
You're going to talk,
one.
like you're eavesdropping on Gwen. This is the first time you meet Gwen. You're eavesdropping on her, and then Loretta
Actually, I
comes up.
think you
Oh, do you meet her
don't you
beforehand?
get the you give her the book before, right?
Oh, you do give her the book before. That is
Yeah,
right. You Gwen asks you to break into a thing to steal a book. Okay, you steal a book.
because Max is really a known lock picker.
Max apparently just is not giving up of any of her day jobs. I like to think that she was like, you know what? Do you remember that time when we were breaking into the principal's office and we had to have Chloe blow off the lock and then I had to rewind in the building? Maybe we should learn from that. And it was like, okay, Max, what is the takeaway message? Not to break into places. No, next time, know how to lockpick. That is the lesson that we've learned. I'm like, okay, you do you, Max. Um. So yeah, you meet Gwen like that, but when you're talking to Loretta and she's like, I'm gonna tell Gwen that you've been eavesdropping on her if you don't give me a proper interview. And I'm like, bet. And she's like, she fucks off there. I'm like, oh god, here we go. Did
That
you do
was
the same choice?
that was yeah.
Yeah.
I called the bluff.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really a bluff though, was it? Because she did fuck off and go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but you know,
To be fair, if Max had just not fumbled at the end, would have been the right choice.
hmm I don't disagree. Um, but I just remember, she comes off of that and it comes off great. But I just, just like I kind of like shit. Wish I could rewind. Shit. Wish I could have rewound that. That went bad.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I liked you and I just upset you.
Yeah. And then
Oops.
I was like, oh god. Hopefully, yeah. And then with the two timelines again, I was like, oh, maybe it's fine. I'm cool with the Gwen in the other universe. Maybe this will. I'm like, again, nothing really comes of it. Anyway, you meet Gwen. You meet Lucas. Outside the statue, giving a lovely little lecture about dead people or whatever. Little dickhead.
Oh God. Yeah, if this was just a delightful
hmm
introduction, I hated him. I was like, where's the punch him option?
Yeah, they were like, you could interact with him or not, and I was like, this guy's such an arsehole. I don't even want to give him the time of day, and just walked away. And then when I got back to the next episode and he was becoming a more important character, I was like, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, because Moses seemed so bummed out, I was like, I'll just follow you.
Yeah, that was the same way. And I'm also like, again, Max, unless Max is my Max anyway, the way I play Max, again, very introverted. So I'm like, you know, if she was talking one on one, then she does get a bit snappy with people and she can, she would kind of be a bit more forward. But in front of a whole class of students, I feel like Max would be like, to it, like, oh, just get out of here, fuck him off. He's a dickhead. It seems like everyone knows he's a dickhead anyway. So it's like, you're not doing anything by going, hey, you're a dickhead.
Yeah.
And then you meet Vin as well, who is like the other romance option, who for the longest part I didn't even realize was a romance option apparently, because he's just snarky asshole. Like that's all he is a character. Is like, Mummy
Yeah,
didn't
like
like me. You know what I mean? Like he's just like kind of
I
got that.
guess like you could assume that it would be an option simply because everything with a pulse seems to be an option for him.
Oh yeah, I love that scene. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, when they kept having options, and like the option was like he was like, he said something kind of horny. He was flirting, and the option was like a sarcastic flirt back or a fuck off. I was always read that as not actual flirting. I was like, oh, do I want to play along but be a bit of an asshole about it, or do I want to just go? And I always pick the other option, but I'm like, oh, were they supposed to be actual flirting options? I'm like, that's
I
pretty
always kept
bad.
it professional simply because he seems like the type that if you even sarcastically,
Yeah.
he would take
Yeah,
the
take the
inch
hint.
and
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to make
Yeah.
it a mile.
He gave me the creep vibes that Warren gives people in Life is Strange 1, apparently. I was like, yeah, he kind of
Yeah.
ring a ding ding there. But I didn't hate him in those first moments. It was like, oh, you're supposed to be like
Oh, I'm like, oh, you're this
the
guy.
club
Yeah,
lead,
I
the
guess
the
you're.
pompous asshole,
y-
yeah.
Yeah,
Self-entitled little guy. And you talk to Yasmin, who is Daffy's mom.
Safi's mom.
you have that conversation, did she commit suicide, stuff like that. Bang your head on the desk every time they mention suicide, because my god, it's
Because she
like,
was shot in the chest.
yeah, everyone's favorite spot for suicides. I'm gonna make myself bleed out on the floor, excruciating pain while doing it. um yeah, you have all of that. um and then I can't remember how's the way this episode ends, when you're back in the court, right, and Max gets the headache again. She gets a bit of a
Yeah, and then
nosebleed,
you
and she's trying to use her rewind. She can hear Safi. She can like see
yeah.
like weird visions, and she can hear Safi. And so she's trying to reach out to her as if trying to use her rewind. And oopsie doopums, she rips a hole in the fabric of space time and enters another reality
Yeah, I
where
think she stumbles back up to like the overlook or whatever, right?
I just remember it's by the statue, right? Because that's where Safi was
Oh
meeting
yeah.
her. And she does
Right,
like the
right, okay.
she does the switcheroo, and there she is. Sophie's alive in this reality. And that's the end of episode 1. Um, which only took an hour. I promise you, we will not be taking that long on every other episode. I promise, because otherwise, I will not be sleeping before work tomorrow. That'd be pretty tragic. But yeah, I think it's a solid start, right? It was a bit of a slow burn. A lot of it was ruined by trailers and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, which is forever going to be the curse of hearing about these games before they come out. It seems like, well, I don't know. Maybe the next one, I'm not sure how they're going to do a next one in a way that's an actual mystery.
Well,
So
we're going to talk about that a little bit later,
yeah,
Hunter. Don't you worry about that. Well, in fact, I'll add an extra timestamp into our little thing that's just called the future, because I guess we're going to have to talk about that. But I liked this chapter. I thought it was, when I first came off of it, I was like, oh, Again, I was expecting more from a first episode, so I think I was coming off a bit down on it. But then in my head, I'm like, is that the worst episode 1 of a Life is Strange game? Um, and then I came out, and then I had a sit down, came back to reality. I'm like, no, it's a very solid episode of Life is Strange.
yeah, I
But
think it
also,
was a good
episode
enough
ones are
introduction.
usually rather strong. So that's the issue with Life is Strangers. Episode ones are rather strong in general. Um, and this one's just a little bit less exciting, if that makes sense. There's not as many stakes. There's not a big fuck off tornado that shows up near the end. There's no
Yeah,
brother falls off a cliff.
yeah, yeah. Like,
There's it's
it
just a
seems
bit
like
more of a,
the other
oh,
two at
getting the
least
power.
a have like two big moments
Yeah.
at
Life
least,
is Strange 2 does
and
as well. And
yeah,
Before the Storm.
like
Before the Storm has a couple as well.
with the first game, it was obviously Chloe being shot, and then the like, was it the snow at the end is the first
Yeah, it
incident
was
of
it was the snow and
weirdo.
yeah, it was getting the storm vision again and the snow, yeah.
Yeah, so
And then in
those
True
are like the
Colors,
two
yeah, it
things
was
there. It
in
was
True Colors it was obviously Gabe dying at the
yeah,
end.
and then even
And
before
even in
that, you like
2,
beat the tar out of the one guy who was all angry.
and in Before the Storm there's one as well. There's like a massive fire and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
there's always one of those moments, and this game didn't really have it. It just was like, oh look, there's the mechanic that we've shown off in trailers all this time. So I'm like, oh yeah. Um Again, that's also something cool that they could have done, is not show the power. I know these did it a lot in the marketing of One Universe is Alive, but I'm like, you missold all of that anyway. Maybe you could have just kept it a surprise and got.
so this was a little minor annoyance. The whole first episode for me was the little UI indication thing in the middle of the screen for the first episode. It was just in the way, and
Yeah,
sometimes it would like line up with certain things to give me the impression that it was like
yeah.
something, and it wasn't anything yet.
You gotta love it, dude. And I mean, as we get into episode 2, I think one of my favorite fucking things, I burst out laughing when I first saw it, was when they indicate which universe you're in, but just put a massive fucking dead or alive in the center of the screen. I'm just like,
Yeah,
damn, me on a Monday, am I right? Fucking dead. Like, like just,
yeah.
and just the color palette changes. And I'm like, it's a cool idea, but again, I think as you get to the gameplay side of things, almost not really executed on well. Like, it's the same kind of 3 puzzles, right? Where it's like you either need something from the other universe, whether that is talking to somebody to get information or literally taking an item from one side and bringing it to the other.
Dude, I thought the lack of object permanence between the two realities was gonna become way more of a factor
Important? Yeah,
in the
same.
overall mystery. I was like, "Oh, you can take items from one place to the other. That's gonna be like crucial to the murder."
The gun comes from the other timeline or something like that, you know? Like, yeah, well,
Yeah,
whatever
and like
happens, you know? Yeah,
I guess it might have, but
it did
it
because it came from
doesn't
Lucas
matter.
in the yeah, but
Yeah, but it doesn't matter in the end.
yeah, doesn't matter. But, so it's either, you've
Uh,
got it's either again, it is looking for environmental differences in the map, try and solve a problem. So see what's different in the live world versus dead worlds, try and come up with a solution. It is grabbing an item from that world and dragging it over to the other place. Or it is fucking going to an area that is accessible on the other side and just snapping back so you don't open a locked door. And that is literally the only three
yeah,
fucking puzzles in this game. And it was very
and
disappointing.
and that last one is basically the same as rewinding yourself into a locked room from the first game.
It's the exact same thing, except with an extra button press. So it's just
Did it become annoying to like walk to the designated places so often too,
do they
rather than it
think that
being like
Max
a
just really needs a piss every time she goes to the pub? Like, cause like it's like every 5 seconds back to the pit. I need a piss. Back I go to the toilet. Back in the forward.
if it was one of those like you singular person, you lock the room, you lock the door behind you kind of things.
Yeah.
Like she'd walk in there, lock the door, and then disappear, and
It
then
also
people would
kind of
just be screwed for the
it kind
rest
of
of
annoys
until she
me
comes
that
back.
there it was. I understand from their gameplay perspective. They're like, we want it to be certain positions because that's the area where you know she can't be seen. I understand that's the gameplay mechanic where she's like, people won't see her there. That's why she can do it. In my head, I'm assuming she can do it wherever she fucking wants. So you have to go to the sparkle zone because that's where no one can see you. Swap realities is my head canon because it makes no fucking sense for there to just be sparkly sections that she can break through, and for some reason that never changes. It just seems very silly,
Yeah.
especially when she can swap fucking frozen lakes and stuff later and
Yeah, yeah, like
all that
I can
jazz.
only walk through to the other world myself, but I can also, pull objects from these worlds from wherever
I
they
just wish
came from.
again. I wish more was done with it. Like I like the idea. There's some fun moments. The highlight of episode 4 for me was the whole idea of having to swap between Moses and the old world and getting information and stuff like that, just to try and
Yeah.
like, oh, you're doing something different here. Nice. Why couldn't more of that have happened for the rest of the game? That would have been fantastic. Um, but so you're back in the live world. You're having a meal with you've learned a couple of things at this point by the end of episode 1. You've learned that Safi had a book deal that got cancelled. You've learned that there's a girl called Maya who had passed away a couple of years prior. And you know that for some reason they're trying to rule Safi's murder as a suicide. That's what
Even though it
yeah.
seems physically impossible.
Yeah.
Why don't they just
And
make her die via cliff pushing if they wanted to do this?
exactly. And jump off the cliff, it would have been quicker than a gun. Um
Yeah.
but so the whole of episode 2 really for the most part is carrying on. Let's get some more information. You start off with you start off with live Safi. You hear she has some grudges with, she has some issues with Vin and his little gang of miscreants. She has some issues with Lucas and his son. She has some issues with Gwen because of this book deal. So you're basically you're chasing leads for the whole of episode 2, trying to figure out who could
Yeah.
have done it from these three obvious characters that it obviously isn't, because
Because it's
that's not how
never the
these
person
games
they
work.
introduced in the
Yeah.
second game or second chapter.
And again, I like this episode because it just feels like classic Life is Strange. It reminds me a bit of episode 2 of Life is Strange 1, because a lot of episode 2 of Life is Strange 1 is one reuniting with Chloe, but also starting to try and question, okay, what the fuck did happen to Rachel Amber, right? So you start
Yeah.
trying to piece some of that stuff together. I like it. There's some interesting stuff here. Again, I like that there are a lot of characters here that aren't necessarily just painted as you're the baddie for the sake of it, like there's some really interesting dynamics between a lot of these characters. They've done a lot of shitty stuff, each of them, while varying degrees of shitty. I think Vin is on the lesser end of that spectrum where he just, came from a poor upbringing, had the chance to sell out his dead friend, I guess, by saying that it was a suicide instead and got a job, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, you should feel bad, but also with your upbringing and having no money and stuff like that, I can understand you. I would forgive that personally in time. I would forgive that. The other two less so, plagiarism and then fucking uh canceling the book deal. Although again, we come back to that book deal, Hunter, at the end, and then there was like the big reveal in episode 4 or whatever that it was actually the mum that got the book deal I'm like, so what was up with that at the end? Did they ever explain what the prop was? It Gwen or was it both? Did they both try and get it cancelled? Well,
Yeah, I don't understand. That's kind of a like loose thread at the end that I haven't really been able to make sense of.
did Gwen actually do anything? What did Gwen do that on orders of the mom? Oh, did they both do it at the same time because they realized that? I don't know. Like,
Because like if they were why did Gwen have to lose her job if that was the case?
and
Oh
why
wait,
is
that
that
was
the
because of
timeline that stuck? Why did her losing her job stick when they got to the end and the timelines merged? Like, the timelines merging thing really fucking annoyed me. We'll get to the end later on. We're already past podcast length, everybody. We're aiming for Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
bloody blah blah blah. Like I say, I'm gonna try and speed up a bit of this, like the mundane stuff. You're finding out little bits of information. You don't actually learn too much in episode 2. You just learn about Gwen canceling the book deal, and Lucas in the living world is trying to file a restraining order against Safi because of something that happened in the living world. That didn't happen in Dead World. Another question I have for you is, there were two Safis. We don't know if there was a second Max in these two timelines because that never fucking was answered. But there was definitely two Safis because one of them fucking died, right?
Yeah.
Was that one also a shapeshifter?
That's a
Because
good
Lucas was
question.
fine with Safi in the Dead World. There wasn't a restraining order being filed.
Yeah, because you'd assume that this was a maybe maybe because it was like the next day or whatever.
What, he given
Maybe
up on his plans? Oh, she's dead. That kind of saved me a job. But no, because
yeah,
you look at the
maybe.
relationship and he's still calling his son like nothing's happened. So nothing in the past has
Oh yeah,
happened.
that's right. He has a
Yeah.
good family life there, so it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Because the only
Oh,
difference is Safi died at that point, right? That is the only difference.
and
He's
that
supposed
was
to be
the
in the timeline.
diverging
Yeah, the
point,
diverging
and
path. Supposedly. Rumor has it.
yeah, I guess maybe there's a hidden difference where she didn't have powers and the
But
other
also the
timeline.
Safi in the photo was there. This is the problem, is it doesn't like on paper, when I read that leak and someone said this 2 years ago about this game, like, the first half of this game is fucking brilliant. The second half, yikes, they don't know what they're doing with it.
Mm,
Hopefully they fix it. Spoiler alert, they did not fix it. And the more I look at it in retrospect, I'm like,
the more you can just really poke holes in it.
yeah, like there's so many flaws. Like, say what you want. I think one of my biggest criticisms with True Colors was that, it was a very low stakes story. It was very down to earth compared to the other two Life is Strange games. There was a lot less stakes. Obviously, the brother passed on, but she was finding a life here. She was trying to, the stakes were
It was much
relatively
more
low.
personal.
Yeah, and I was like, that was like my biggest criticism was, oh, I kind of, Life is Strange has more, there's always a supernatural kind of twist with these games, and usually in the past, and True Colors doesn't really have that other than her being an empath. And now I kind of look at it and go, you know what, True Colors, you keep shining. You gold star for you because it
Yeah,
works way more.
in True Colors, that was less of a bother for me
Mhm.
because my least favorite part of the first game was when the tornado showed up at the end.
Yeah,
So I was like, I can, I like the powers twist still being present, but the
yeah, no,
disaster striking at the end is, you know,
I can,
we
yeah,
can leave that behind.
no. But so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, you know, why, like, these are the questions now that I wasn't thinking when I was doing it because, you start to hear little rumblings, right? Gwen is being fired for her job because she was dealing drugs on campus, something that she didn't do, and she had footage. We'll get to the footage point. Can you make a note, Hunter, of the footage of Gwen? So when we get back to episode 5, I can bring this point up because I think I want to bring a point up later. Um, Also, other student, which I have already forgotten his name, he was like the 21, Reggie,
Reggie,
having a panic
yeah.
attack. he's also seen a version of himself just walking about while he was in the woods. That was creepy. I was like, ooh, that's kind of creepy. Again, the creepy vibes from episode 2 start to settle in. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
you also find like the Polaroids of the unfortunate happenings with the narration of the stuff that, doesn't
yeah.
make any sense to Max is another good touch there.
And in the second, that means there's a third timeline because all these, there's more than these two because they're all from a different timeline where different things happen. And I'm like, that's interesting. And some of them are really fucking creepy. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are funny. Like, there's some nice stuff uh, in these like little snapshots. I appreciate them quite a bit. But there are some really creepy tones that start to trickle in episode 2. And what was your thought process when you started hearing that there was doubles of people? What was your original like? What was your headcanon going into that when you started hearing?
So I
Uh,
think that's when I started developing the notion that because I had already kind of floated the minor idea of, oh, I don't know how this would make sense yet, but wouldn't it be something if alternate universe Max was the one who killed Safi?
yeah,
That
totally.
notion passed my head while we were walking up to Safi's body in the first episode. And
Mm,
then as we got the um, suspicious doubles and stuff, I was like, huh, it'd be interesting if like I was I was like sitting there thinking, it seems like some kind of malevolent opposite doppelganger thing is happening. So I
yeah.
was trying to sit there and like, parse what would the source of that be. And I'm like, it'd be funny if it was that's the reality that you didn't pick at the beginning.
Mm. You see, my thing was, I'm like, oh, that's creepy. There's doppelgangers happening. So my thought originally was, I for some reason shapeshift never crossed my mind. Which, in retrospect, I'm like, don't know why I never, because surprisingly, this is the first Life is Strange game where two people with powers are in it in the same game,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. Never crossed my mind to think, what if somebody else has powers in this situation, and what if they're a shapeshifter? Because there's thing. Never crossed my mind. But in my head, I was like, for some reason, I was set on the fact, and to be fair, should pat myself on the back a tiny little bit for this because I was kind of right in the end, but I was led to believe that I was. I was like, I wonder if it's alternate universe Safi that did it.
Yeah. That also crossed my mind because she was starting to seem living Safi started to seem really sus
Yeah.
throughout episode 2. So I'm like, I don't know how this would work yet either, but
But she's not
imagine if
around. You're
that
starting to
happened.
find that there's, she's having difficulties where Dead World Safi wasn't really having them, and there was, conflicting kind of relationship dynamics. I was like, interesting. That was my thought process, was what if it is alternate universe Safi that killed our Safi for some reason, right? Um, why could that possibly be, or anything like that? So that's what I was running on. And then obviously Moses gives you a call and he's like, I'm being held for I'm being held hostage by a racist fucking cop. Please come save me.
Yeah.
And so then you do that, and you do like this little sneaky. You meet Colonel Dickhead or whatever his name is, Chief of Police Dickhead, who
Yeah, this is a
um
detective man,
detective who
alderman, I
is
think.
extremely just blatantly racist for no reason, just being like, yeah, why not? Um, so yeah, you have to sneak in and grab the camera because Moses did something stupid and grabbed a piece of evidence off of the crime scene and decided to hide it in his lab for fun and games, just to keep the plot
Mhm.
rolling, I guess. Um, you have to do that You have to do that sneaking in between, and again, it's a cool little moment where you have to swap to Living World, and Moses is there with his nice shiny telescope, and you're talking to him, and you're hanging out. He's got the creepy hot dog man Christmas ornament.
Yeah. I made a amusing note here because this is one that wasn't really relevant to anything besides just humorous observation. Was I'm like the biggest mystery of the game so far is how Moses got an Allen wrench that big because I've only ever used Allen wrenches for like tiny screws and stuff,
Yeah,
and then the one you grab is like you could
yeah,
blunt
yeah,
force
yeah.
trauma somebody with that.
Um, so yeah, you're basically just sneaking around trying to move stuff, and then you realize that Max has the power to swap things from one reality state to the other. So the broken in the dead world, the telescope that he hasn't built because of Sophie's death in the broken world becomes built because she swapped the two pieces, the two things on the other side.
You know what would have been a really cool like end of episode dramatic stinger that they didn't do?
Go for it.
Imagine if she shot somebody else into the other reality.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Maybe Lieutenant Dickhead instead of just randomly getting rid of him in the middle of episode 3 for no reason with no
Yeah.
stakes. Um, but yeah, so you get the camera and you get out of there, and then you go to the dark room, and this is quite possibly my favorite moment out of the entire game. Is not only is the dark room creepy, and dark rooms are creepy in general, right? But with the whole story of Life is Strange 1 and the red coming through, you're like, oh, never feel comfortable in a dark room after Life is Strange 1. Um, it's the way it shows that shot, and it's like there's something eerie about that photo and the framing of it, where again, because Max is upset, and it's like it's such a creepy fucking image, and it's like I properly like got goosebumps, and it was just like what a moment, dude! Like what a moment. I was like, Life is Strange is back, baby. What a fucking
Yeah, with
twist.
the way that they work the camera, the music, all of
Mm.
that up to when it asks
Moses
you to
running
push a
away, yeah,
button.
yeah.
Yeah. My favorite part was the I can explain dialogue option. I'm like, I can't explain. Look, her coat's different.
That's what
I'm wearing the red
I.
one.
That's funny. Uh, I wore because I was silly and I bought the stupid expensive version. I had like the first episode. I wore the Final Fantasy outfit because there's a Final Fantasy one where you get a Moogle hat, and I was like, "Look at my Moogle hat! Look how cute this Moogle hat is!" And then every time I was watching episode 1 and Max was talking, I was just too busy looking at the cute Moogle hat, and I'm like, "I need to turn this off because I'm enjoying this Moogle hat too much." And so I just went back to generic outfit because I was like,
Yeah.
"It's a good hat." It was a very good hat. She has like a chocobo tee as
Imagine if it
well.
did save it though, and you got the creepy image reveal with the Moogle
I
hat.
would have fucking. I would have. I was like, there was a part of me because obviously I was playing with the default outfit. I was like, I wonder if that does change. And I watched someone else's playthrough or whatever, and it doesn't. I was like, shame. That would have been sick,
Like at that point, you could just blame Sephiroth too. You
dude.
can never
What
put
would
that.
have been really cool because the other Final Fantasy outfit that she has one that's based on like a Tomberry, and it's like a goth
Yeah,
kind of darker style. Like that would have looked so sick in that photo if they
yeah,
let you have custom outfits. Um, but yeah, I just remember saying that I was like, it's my favorite reaction of all of them. I'm so happy that I have the episode 2 reaction up there because I can go back and watch it because I was creeped out and I was like, whoa, and I'm like, what a fucking ending. And it was like pumped me up for having to wait 2 weeks to play the rest of the game. And I can see why they did it because my god, those first 2 episodes would really hype you for the rest of the game.
yeah,
But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
yeah.
Um,
That ending part of this episode, I would say, is the high point of the game.
oh, 100%. I just again everything just works, and then again, you go back to the main menu after finishing the episode, and the main menu music is it's this little mainly a guitar riff, right? But
Yeah, a guitar riff that sounds like it's disjointed
and really creepy. Yeah, it's like it's got like
yeah,
this ominous tone to it, and vocals. When I first started the game, like, oh, this isn't Life is Strange vibes. I'm used to loading up a Life is Strange game and having a scenic shot, which this game has, but then just kind of like light, guitar riffs, kind of ambient music that just kind of plays with the sound of the wind or whatever environmental effects that are happening in that scene, and to just get this really awkward, like creepy kind of tone to
I'm
it
not
with
supposed
the
to get
snow.
vocals until I put the earphones in.
Yeah, I was like, that's very creepy. And then you get to the end of episode 2, and then it just starts playing that, and I'm like, oh, just again vibes, immaculate. They passed the vibe check at that point. Brilliant.
It
Um,
functioning as the pause music was an excellent choice too.
yeah, you love to see it. Which leads us to chapter 3, which, by the way, chapters 1, 2, and 3 all took me about 3 hours. That was a little gremlin that hunted everything. Episodes 4 and 5 took me less than 2 for both of them. So,
Yeah, it took like
um,
less. It took like a little under 2 for me to do episode 5 for
I
sure.
would love, and this is good. This goes doubly because even True Colors is like this. I would love a Life is Strange game where I don't necessarily want it to be bloated, but I'd really like them to have at least them be the same length as the starting chapters, because you either get extremely like you get like episode 4 of Life is Strange 1 where it's extremely bloated and it doesn't want to fucking end, and you're like, please stop, we've
Yeah.
gone on too many tangents. But then in later Life is Strange games, you almost get these episodes where I'm like, episode 4 is a very important episode because you're setting up the hook for the ending. And it seems to me that in True Colors and in this, they're the shortest episode, and you're like, why? This is where you need to get the hook and go, get to it, and they just don't do it, and it annoys me. I'm just like,
Yeah.
save a little bit for episode 4, guys. I feel like Deck 9, you're not giving episode 4 enough love. Who knows? Maybe the next one. Anyway, don't do that side eye, Hunter. Don't do that side eye. Chapter 3.
It was a good chapter too.
I liked chapter 3 a lot. Again, it continued. Again, we were doing more exploration. You had the very like I said. Here's the thing about episode 3 is episode 2 had my favorite moment. I think episode 3 is my favorite chapter just because of the way I felt throughout it. Again, I go back to what I was writing about in my review. Was like I felt nothing by the end of this game. There was no real emotional weight at the end of this game. Episode 3, multiple times where I was tense, multiple times where I was stressed, multiple times where I felt uncomfortable, and I love when games like this do that because
Yeah.
you know you want to feel something because you know you're
Yeah.
not there for the gameplay, you're there for the feeling, right? So
Yeah, you're there for the vibes,
yeah,
the
exactly.
emotion it elicits.
So being interrogated by the dickhead detective who is seemingly working everything out like he's like Sherlock Jr.
Telescopes don't just unmake themselves or whatever there.
Yeah, and I like
Was
how
his
he's like, "Oh,
line.
it must mean you've got voodoo magic." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you experienced with voodoo magic?"
This is the one guy who almost would make more sense in the destroy the town timeline.
Yeah,
Just because being one of two people to escape a tornado like that would
100%.
maybe
This is the same. This is my feeling was. It was like this is the only one that does make sense in the other one because I'm like, how would you even know that powers were involved or anything to do with Chloe? Because and especially
when
the
the
thing, because if you look back at the record and he's trying to draw the lines. He's like, you were there when Chloe died, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. You will also know
I
if you do your
called
reference
them.
that I'm the person that pressed the fire alarm and you know, informed the police, but I was also the person that hadn't spoken to her for years anyway. So, because in that timeline, they hadn't had that extra week of time together. So it's like,
Yeah.
just his whole fucking spiel just doesn't work at all. I'm like, if anything, you should be asking Nathan Prescott what happened in jail, where he probably is still with Jefferson, hopefully. That's the plot twist for Life is Strange 6 Hunter, is they
Oh god.
Sophie's breaking him out. um, Oh God. Um. So yeah, you know, detective. He sees the glimpse of the photo, which that annoyed me because Max. I was screaming at Max the whole time. I was like, "Hide the photo, Max! Don't go to the door. Hide the fucking photo." She just leaves it on the counter like a dumbass. Um.
Rookie
Yeah,
mistake.
you have that scene, and you're like, "Okay, I need to go and explain to Moses what's happening." Basically, I need to confess what's happening. And to be fair, you have a really good scene with Moses. I really like this scene. It's one of the more believable kind of reveals to somebody about these powers because, you know, it was harder for time travel and empathy because it's kind of hard to explain someone other than going, trust me on this. I feel
Yeah.
happy when you're happy, or show me what's in your pocket and then I'll rewind and tell you that you've got 2 quarters and a panda keychain, right? Like
Yeah.
this one, she does literally zip out, sees that he's doing some
You just
nerdy stance and then just
literally
copies it.
disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's kind of a wholesome moment, and I like that. And I like Moses and how he's very, you know, he's a homie dude. He's like he trusts you, and it's like you don't even know each other that well in this version of the timeline, right? In this timeline, they haven't had that opportunity to become really close friends yet.
Yeah.
So I just like that scene, and then you get Officer Dickhead who shows back up again and goes, "They always return to the scene of the crime," and he smokes his cigar and I don't know, about some racist rhetoric at the people below because it's the 1940s or something, you know? Like, what was his deal?
Yeah. And then it's like time trial ghost unpersons him. This never made any sense. Is he alive now that the timelines merged?
I don't think
Eh,
Because here's the thing, right? Was me and Hunter have had a wonderful conversation about this off the podcast already because we were trying to explain it to each other. Because originally, it was like Max was like, I don't want to touch. At the end of the episode, Max is like, I don't. This was obviously a setup for at the end when Max touches the other Max and they don't disintegrate. That something's wrong there. It's like supposed to be like, why is Max? Why hasn't Max also turned into goop and sucked back in? Blah 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 blah.
which I feel like
Which makes
if
sense if it
this
was
guy
the two
existed,
timelines touched each other. That would
yeah,
make more sense. But what this shows is because you're with Dead Moses timeline, and the cop is also in the dead timeline, and what you are shown is like Max's almost her time powers are blending in where they can watch him experience the dead body because it's a scene of him reporting on the dead body, which is also only in the dead timeline, and then he touches a past version of himself and then gets sucked in. But that's the only time where she sees a past recollection of something in the whole game. Like, you'll have to let us know if you are still here, an hour and a
mhm,
half in, a feature film into this podcast. If you are still here, please let us know in the YouTube comments or writing to us at the email and podcast services. If you understand the scene, if you wrote this fucking video game and you're just like making
yes,
note,
Tech9, please tell us what you
please
meant.
can you just explain to two
Because
dumbasses
like
apparently
I
why
feel
what the
like
scene is supposed to be?
because if it was to set if this guy only exists to set up, hey, don't touch your alternate self or you
It's
die.
never brought up
I feel
again.
like
Yeah.
I feel like you could have just coasted on that notion being a thing that people think about alternate reality selves anyway.
And
Like,
also, it was a big
and
choice at the end. It
that's
was a
the
big
rule
choice.
half the time.
It was a big choice at the end to either keep trying to help him or let go, right? And it's like, this action will have come. Nothing fucking happened. Moses gets a grey streak in his hair if you
Yeah,
keep trying to help, and that seems to be the actions have consequences. I'm like, he got Death Stranding.
yeah.
He touched the age. He touched the time
He
form, and
got
now he's got
rained
a grey
on,
streak.
man.
Yeah,
He got
um,
fragile.
yeah, which is crazy to me. I was like, again, I was expecting more to come of that. I was expecting in the nightmare or something for him to show up or something, all creeped out or deformed or something, just something to
Yeah, that would
give
have
us some
been
juice.
something.
But there was nothing, nada. Just let's get rid of the problem. Off he goes. There you go. Never have to deal with him for the rest of the episode. And then they keep trying to bring him back up as if disappear from the timeline. Nothing's happening. What the? He doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore.
and
His
that
wife's
doesn't
grieving,
go
but he doesn't
anywhere
exist.
either.
Nothing happens.
Yeah,
Nothing. Nada.
super weird.
It was weird. Uh, I again, I wish they kind of explained anything about it. But then, guess what, Hunter? Ding, ding, ding. Hope you like exploring the same two play spaces again, because we're going exploring again. Yeah, this is the point of the
Woo!
game where I realized that there were no other play spaces other than the fucking the bar and the Caledon area, and I was like, I wish we had more places to explore because
We
Haven.
just needed like one or two, really. I think.
People act as if I've seen some people online go, guys, Haven Springs was actually a really small map. Like, yeah, but you could walk around the entirety of Haven Springs.
Yeah, you like
There
had
was
a
the
whole
park
main
area,
street
there was
to
the sign
go.
area. You had all the shops that you went into because you had like the
Yeah,
garden shop, you had the music shop, you had obviously the bar, you had everything, and it was all in one map, right? You could go from Alex's room to outside all in one space. And then it had like the mountain areas and the cave system and all that other stuff all on top of it. Whereas this game literally had the Outlook, the bar, the Caledon University grounds, and then
the
the
buildings.
bowling alley. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. Like, there was really not much to do there, really. And it was kind of a shame, to be honest, because again, the atmosphere is great. I just wish there was more to it. We never went to the student dorms,
like
and there was
I
no
feel like you
real.
could have. I don't know if Abraxas had a clubhouse or something.
Yeah, like Abraxas had
You
like
could have
a.
done something like that for stealing Vin's phone
And we
information or
haven't really
something instead
mentioned,
of
like,
just
one of the things with Abraxas was, the whole head in the car and stuff like that. And again,
oh yeah,
this is all stuff where I'm like, you're adding stuff here that I don't necessarily think needed didn't need adding because there was no kind of real point to it, really. The only reason for Vin to be in the story was to basically be the person to explain
just
to
a red
you about
herring.
Maya in this episode, really. It was to try and give you the information about Maya. And there's some great stuff here. I love what they did in this one in particular, where you have a live Vin who is, very much just keeping up with his rather dickhead appearance, and then you have the Dead World Finn, who is obviously very traumatized from losing someone who was very close to him. Well,
Yeah.
at least in his mind, Safi was an ex. Basically, you find
She
out in
means
this
a lot to
episode.
him.
Yeah, and also, he feels guilty about Maya as well. Now this is like they were a trio at one point in terms of friends, so it's like he's lost two friends. And in Dead World, they think it's a suicide, so he thinks it's happened again. Right? There's a lot of layers where I'm
Yeah.
like, I feel for him, and manipulating both of them to try and get information was actually really,
It was like, oh,
it
yeah,
felt bad, but it was quite clever
yeah.
in the way that you did it. I was like, I kind of, again, interesting things with the two timelines where there's at least a couple of instances where I'm like, okay, they're actually doing something here that isn't just I need to get into this room, let me go to the other universe real quick. Unfortunately, I had a glitch in this section where it never checked off the Vin box,
Oh, yeah, where it's like, because I
and
went
then when
to
I tried to sort the
sleep in the
Lucas
middle
stuff
of the
out, yeah,
chapter. So I was like, I saved it and reloaded or whatever the next day, and I was back in front of Vin, and
yeah,
that box wasn't checked, but I couldn't interact
talk
with
to
him.
him.
But so I had to sit there and be like, okay, now where's Lucas
And
then?
I
Because it
watched the
just
Lucas, yeah,
teleports
I
you to
watched the
the.
Lucas cutscene, and he asked me to leave, so I left. So I left the thing or whatever, and I got a glitch where I couldn't go back in. So I pressed the touchpad. It says talk to Vin. I'm like, oh, I must have done what I need to do with Lucas and talk to Vin. And then I went back. Obviously, I finally got access to the office again because you have to go to the other world or whatever to check that version of it. Look around, can't find anything. Talk to Vin. I'm like, fuck. I just probably need to go and talk to Vin again. Off I go to talk to Vin. Nothing. And then it turns out it's that stupid fucking key under the picture frame that
Yeah, I had
I
a
couldn't
minute.
fucking find.
I had a minute looking for that too. I've examined everything here. I'm like, it's cool. He has a photo of his family, and then he's got just the kid on the other side, and I wasn't checking for. Also, like the typewriter,
Yep.
weird location to put that key in.
Yeah, I agree. I looked
Because
everywhere
like,
else. I tried the two cabinets. I
because
thought everything else.
like, there's nothing. If you didn't know it was there, or if it didn't tell you it was there when you walk against it, there's nothing about the typewriter where it's like, oh, key slot.
No,
Observable right there.
the only thing that it was like the key was gold and the typewriter was gold. That was like the only clue you had. I'm like, okay,
But
great.
like gold,
Shout out to my
bronzy
colorblind.
colors
Yeah,
of
the
yeah,
regular bronze color of a regular key that could go anywhere. Yeah, I know, Hunter.
yeah.
Right, shocking. Um, but you essentially learn that from your third set of investigations against the people that are obviously still not the culprit, because you now know that it was you. So now you're trying to figure out why it was you. You're like, I'm going to go around snooping again, this time focusing on that of dead student Maya to see if there's a correlation to the way that they died. And I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder, because earlier on in the scene, we forgot to mention this first scene, she actually gets her power back where she can go back into photos.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and she goes back to that scene, and Sophie's acting like we know what's happening and stuff like that, and she brings up Maya and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is more important. She's like, I'm like, okay, what do they all have in common then? Blah 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 blah. That scene I don't think helped really. I think
No, not in
it
the
told
end.
you nothing. Even at the time, I don't think it helped you solidify anything other than there's a storm, and I mean, I guess you were supposed to think in your head because of the storm. Was the storm in the flashback when you went there? I think it
Yeah,
was, right? I think
Storm was in the flashback.
the only thing you were supposed to realize was, oh, there wasn't a storm when we initially went there when she did get shot the first time, but when you go into the photo, there was a storm. I guess you could pick up on that, but other than that, there was really nothing of value in that photo whatsoever. It was just a blah blah blah. She hears the word Maya. She's like, okay, time to go and explore Maya time. And what you
Oh,
essentially
that's
learn,
like, oh hey, you can photo jump again
yeah,
once this time.
and we're going to do it again in episode 4, and it's the same photo.
Yeah.
We're never going to do it in any other photo ever. Um, what I think is really funny, and again, just a tiny bit of a loophole here, is if we all remember correctly, there was a photo that the three of them took on the selfie right before the murder happened. could have gone back into that one and just told her to not leave if she really wanted to prevent the death. But
Because it takes you a minute to walk up to the Overlook in the last episode, that might have been the photo she used.
maybe it was actually. Maybe that was the photo that she used.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what photo she used. But I thought it was very. Maybe that was the
Because you
photo.
do take a minute because you don't just start the
No, you
episode
start at the
with
bottom of the so maybe that
yeah.
was the photo. But I thought it was very weird that after discovering that she didn't just go back to fuck solving the mystery. Then I guess I'll just go back to that one. I guess she was scared of
Yeah.
fucking with time too much again, but then she went to the actual 0 point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you get the name of Maya, and it's time to go Maya searching, right? So what you learn from Vin is that Maya was the best friend of Safi, who tragically passed away due to circumstances that no one wants to talk about. You then go and explore Gwen, and Gwen tells you a bit more about, Safi's book deal and that it was about Maya and that Safi's mum didn't want that book being published, and she and Gwen thought it was a bad idea because it would stir up blood between, bad blood between both of them. So she got the book deal cancelled. That's that kind of story in a nutshell, really. And then you go into Lucas's office and you search for the bullshit key, and you get the manuscript for for Maya Okada's original story, which is basically what he's plagiarized. So that is all the
Yeah.
information that you're given on Maya. Is basically Lucas was a scumbag. He plagiarized her work. She killed herself because of what happened. Because her work was stolen without credit, I assume. And
Having strong friendships in this series is a death sentence.
yeah,
Because
and
you're
then
either
and
the
then
best
yeah,
friend of the best friend who's dead in the backstory, or you're the best friend who's going to die.
in the first chapter of the current
Yeah.
story. Watch your back. uh, that's so funny. Can you that's what you should just be I'm just sitting there and I'm like, just don't be friends with anybody in the Life is Strange universe. If Moses, watch your back. Dude, watch your back. That's all I'm saying. You're on the list, my guy. You're on the list. No. But and then with Vin, he basically tells you that it was Lucas's fault, the reason behind it, and that the reason he is involved in all this is just because to get his job at the university, he had to give a statement saying that Maya had killed herself. Right? So did Maya not kill herself?
He had to say something specifically about her, like
Oh,
being
that she had her
mentally
mental health was bad.
unstable.
Yeah, yeah, which is a bit weird, but also then she did kill herself because of what
Yeah.
happened, and
So
technically
it
that
is
would be meant.
weird.
That's the truth though, because she was emotionally distressed and mentally you could say that is technically what happened. It's just
Yeah, because they try to like pin
they try to play it as if he
Ben's
was
guilt as if he was
a bad person.
lying
Yeah.
about something.
Which he's technically just told
When
the truth. The only thing that he hasn't told is that it was Lucas's fault. That's the only thing that Lucas stealing the manuscript is what drove her to feel that way. So really,
to be
actually, look at.
fair to Vin, he might not have even known that at the time. I don't remember.
I think he
'Cause-
did, but I think in Vin's mind, he did. He feels like he didn't do enough to help her get
yeah.
through it. And then that's kind of like doubling down by going, yeah, it was her fault for being mentally unstable or whatever. When who knows? I think they play Vin's stuff out to be worse than it is. Which again, they try in this chapter, in chapter 3, they
That's
try
kind
to
of what they
redeem him a
do
little
with
bit, which is what they're trying to do anyway, regardless, right? So you get
yeah.
all that information. Sophie's angry with you because you've been stalking. Dun dun dun. Sophie's angry. She's like, "You can go fuck yourself," and then walks away. And I'm like, okay, there's something definitely up with Sophie then, because you get these weird. You have that weird moment with Amanda in the dining hall or whatever, where she's not
Yeah,
acting
where she's like
herself. Yeah, I was like, that was weird. And then when you get to the bar, she's like, I never would say that. And I see again, I still didn't click on shapeshifter because I'm a fucking dumbass apparently. Um, but you have that bar scene. You have the two bar scenes. You have the bar scene in the living world and the bar scene in the dead world. And I like both of these scenes. They're pretty chill scenes, to be honest. I like quite a lot of them. I was like, the Vin scene where you just have an honest conversation with him. I was like, to be honest, this is quite wholesome for what it was. You get to play a rousing round of smash or pass where if you're like me and Hunter, you just pass
Pass
everybody.
or pass,
Yeah,
yeah.
pass or pass.
There's a little game of soccer.
Well,
Kick it back and
Vin
forth.
was taking all the smashes. There was no smashes left, Like he was
Yeah.
just like Max was going, "What about that table over there?" And Vin's like, "Smash, dude. There you go." Like he was up for
What
anything.
about the wall? Hulk smash.
Yeah, dude. He just wanted everything. Um. So yeah, you get that, and then Amanda, you get like the club kind of going to the concert little
Yeah, the
thing.
D&D scenario of the imaginary concert.
Yeah, which were very much again reminded me a bit of the imaginary scene from Life is Strange True Colors, and also from Before the Storm. There's a mosh pit kind of scene at the start of Before the Storm. It kind of reminded me a bit of that as well, um, with Chloe and Rachel. So it's like that was a cute moment. I was like, oh, that's nice. Uh, it's a shame you couldn't have moved some of Amanda's romance stuff into episode 2 instead of 3, so that I would have been more inclined to
Yeah.
actually go for it. But you do you. Thanks, Deck9. Good scenes regardless, right? And
Yeah.
you get some scenes with Gwen, you get some nice little, figuring out Gwen's been fired because of the drug situation and all that jazz. And it's time for you to go home, and it's very important to you remember that when you leave in the living world, because this is the only point where I actually got some confusion, because there's been a break-in in the Caulfield household. Uh, And then I was like, oh God, they're going to try and find the photo and stuff like that. And then I realized, no, I'm in the wrong fucking world. Why is Living World Max's house being raided? It was like one of those things where I was like, in my
You
head,
know
I
what the
thought I was in the dead
funny thing
world.
is, like, because of the order I did things in, I did Amanda's conversation
First?
first
Yeah, same.
in that scene. So had I had wrapped up talking to Vin,
Hmm.
and then it like specifically tells you to go back to the living world to leave.
Yeah.
So I had just done that. So I'm like, oh, so I guess because
You
all
see,
I had
what
to
I
do was
did
walk
was
out
I
the
did Amanda
door.
first, then I talked to Vin, then I saw it said I had to leave in the living world. So I went to that, and then I had the chat with Gwen. So I was like, okay. So I had an extra chat, so I just must have forgotten. And then I was like, oh, we've had a break in the living world. I I'm not gonna lie. Again, if you would like to go watch my reaction, feel free. It's quite funny. I see there's a break in. The music starts getting creepy. I literally fucking go straight in. I go straight to my thing. I'm like, I'm gonna read all the text messages for 20 minutes. I
my
don't care.
my my singular note about that is, oh no, our place has been bushwhacked.
That's funny. Um, I was genuinely terrified. So then I pressed the pause button, and then it started playing the creepy music from the main menu, and I'm like, not the time. So I go in the thing and I check the text messages where it's a bit more quiet. Uh, and then I sit there for about 5 minutes reading the stuff because there was a lot of stuff that I was catching up on. Then I undo it, and then I move like 2 steps forward, and then the big happens, and the
Yeah.
door slaps, and it fucking scared me shitless. And I paused the game, and I had to fucking take like 3 minutes off. I was like, that was genuinely terrifying. Like it scared the shit out of me, like genuinely. And I think the audio was a bit bugged, and I think that the sound was a lot louder than it was supposed to be. So,
Yeah.
it just scared the absolute living hell out of me. And I was like, fair play, you have vibe completed. You did the job.
You know, a
Um,
funny thing that crossed my mind for a minute because I kind of got not my world swapped, but who's
yeah,
the relationship situation in the worlds swapped around. I was like, oh, I haven't heard from Loretta in a while.
yeah, that would make sense.
So, except it was the wrong universe for that. So I was
Yeah,
like,
true.
oh, so I was like, oh, never mind.
I was like, it's probably the other Max. That's why my head was, it's probably the other Max. It's probably the other Max. But why would she be breaking? But then I never thought again.
Yeah, why
But
did
here's
you
the
have to
thing was,
break into
but
your own house?
in my head for the first bit, I was like, I'm in the dead world. So I'm like, oh, they broken into my house looking for the evidence. So I'm like, what if it's the other Max? And then when I realized in the living world, I'm like, who the fuck could it be then? Right? So it's like, I was,
Also, hypothetically, the living in dead world keys would work on either of the households.
yeah, true, true. Um, But I think it's just like looking at all the stuff on the floor, finding out all that stuff is very interesting. I was like, that's kind of cool. And I think I said to you, I was like, if I was Max in that situation, whoosh to live to Dead World where my house is safe and I'm fine. I'm sleeping. I ain't going back there. Who knows? They could fucking kill me. I don't need bye bye, fight or flight,
Like,
flight.
at least
See you
like
later.
arm yourself with something.
Yeah, totally, man. Like, yeah, geez. Um,
Try to see if there's a doorway to the basement in the other world and then
Yeah.
pop out of reality, jump scare them, turn the tables on them.
Yeah, basically. I still don't know what caused the door to slam. I guess was it just the wind blowing? I guess that's what that was. And then you could hear the dark room door go and stuff like that. It was like very creepy stuff, some good stuff. The way they scattered the stuff around the house and you can see different bits like Chloe's photo and stuff. I was like, very creepy
Yeah,
atmosphere. I really
the
appreciate the way they did it.
Sophie's candy was one on the ground. I'm like, oh, neat.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's actually really creepy. Again, I love this bit. Then you go down the stairs and it is the other alternate Max. And you're like, oh, that's creepy. And then you have that chase sequence into the thing and, weave in, dive in, quick time eventing, uh, onto the ice. The ice starts to crack. Max does magic powers, which I didn't realize was her swapping frozen lakes until they tell you the next episode. I was like, I don't know what the plan was there. Um, when she
By
does,
the way,
yeah,
her method of navigating the cracking ice,
yeah,
totally wrong. You're supposed to spread your weight out for that kind of thing. She should have been like crawling
hmm
instead of standing up.
yeah. And then so that happens. She falls through the ice. Max grabs her, and then I assume this is the moment where everyone's supposed to go, "Oh no, don't touch! You'll turn into goop." But nothing happens, and then you find out that it was actually Sophie, and Sophie is a shapeshifter. Dun dun dun. End of chapter 3. Pretty cool plot twist. I don't think a lot of people have been saying that it was like, oh, that was such a hype moment. And I was just kind of like, I was more confused than anything because I don't think they actually show it off that well. It looks like a glitch in the Matrix. It almost looks like a camera, like a
For a minute, I was wondering if for some reason, like like a cognitive perception thing had happened where Safi also saw herself where Max was, but that wouldn't have. Then I realized that wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense because she still had to break into Max's place and all of
yeah.
that.
So there you go. That's chapter 3, and I still like chapter 3.
Yeah, chapter 3 was still a solid one.
And then we move into
For a minute,
chapter
I
4.
thought
Yeah.
we were inadvertently making Living World Max's life harder by poking around into things that didn't make sense for her to be investigating.
Yeah, but again, it never is brought up ever.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened to Living World Max? My headcanon would have been that when the two timelines split, Max, there's just one Max and it's all around Max. But Safi mentions in Living World that they had made plans to meet up here and stuff like that, and she'd been dead for a few days. So I'm like, unless those plans were like already made like a week ago or something like that. But the way that conversation goes
Yeah.
is it almost was like Safi had been in communication with her and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know. That's my only kind of thing is maybe there's a timeline split around Max. Anyway, episode 4. There's really not much to talk about with episode 4, bar the opening scene, really, and that's the main juicy bit is the confrontation between Safi and Max, where they both admit that they have powers and they swap the bottle cap around to each other to answer a set of 20 questions, basically. I mean, you get some interesting things here, interesting little tidbits, basically how Safi's been playing different versions of the characters that you've met at certain points during the story. Most of them I think were pretty obvious. The only one where I was like, oh, actually, that's pretty clever was when Vin was struggling to get into his phone. I was like, oh, that's really stupid that Vin can't get into his phone, in the first episode when he is just hanging out in his office and he can't remember his password or whatever. I was like, that's pretty dumb that he can't remember his own passcode. And now that I
Oh
know it was
yeah, that
Safi, I'm
was.
like, oh yeah, that makes way more sense. Okay, there you go. He's less brain dead.
Although, you know, Safi would have had access to her own phone
Yeah,
when. So why couldn't she have just Googled who that guy was
no clue.
to get the information?
No clue. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
she was Vin. She could have told one of his lackeys to do it, something like that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there was that. There was the time that he played, that she played. Sorry, Amanda, and then were there a couple of others. I don't remember.
Did you say Gwen already?
Oh, Gwen when she was dealing drugs. Obviously,
Yeah.
the student when
Ooh,
he saw himself in
Lucas
the
to
woods.
chew out his son.
Lucas to chew out his son. Um, and you just kind of learn that she's just using her powers in a way that are just a bit manipulative, really. And again, this is to
Yeah.
me where the plot, because then they come to an agreement. Max tells her about the photo and how he thinks that in the future she's going to kill her. Um, which I just want to say, we act as if stepping into the storm and stuff fixes that. Still could technically happen in the future.
Yeah.
Which there's still a part of me that's like, is that what's going to come down to? Is if we get another one of these, are they just going to have the big final thing going to be you actually do go back and you have to choose to shoot her or not?
Dude, making this a
Again.
2-game story just to have that like
Mm-hmm.
happen would be real lame.
Yeah, but so yeah, you basically come to an agreement that you're gonna ruin Lucas. You found out all the story about Lucas and his plagiarism, and that there's this Krampus celebration where there's a roast usually, and Lucas is the roast of this year. So at the roast, you're gonna reveal him to be a plagiarist. Okay, cool. This is where the cracks start to show for me a little bit, because Sophie could have done this at any point and has had this information for years.
Yeah.
And she also had the power because she mentions that she's had it since she was a teenager. So she had the power to do this whole fucking
If
time.
she was going to impersonate Lucas to chew out his son, why not impersonate Lucas
And admit to
to
doing all this
confess?
stuff. Yes, exactly. The Persona 5 method. Exactly, Hunter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just this whole kind of thing kind of like, it's a cool
Like, it
puzzle.
wouldn't
Like,
be
I
that
like the
hard.
episode. I like the episode 4 kind of thing where you're involving everybody to try and get it all, to the point where you are in a place where Moses knows all the information and can pass it to you so that you can get the projector to not work properly and all that. It's like, it's a cool idea. But then I'm sitting there and I'm like, with Safi's powers and the way that she's been acting, she would have done this ages ago if that was her actual kind of motive. Because she's got revenge on everybody else for being so fucking petty, but she hasn't, like, I got a revenge on him by making his son hate him. And I'm like, yeah, but you could have also exposed him for everything that has happened. Because you
Yeah.
have the original manuscripts. It all just kind of seemed a bit whack. And I think that's my issue with Safi is, I made the prediction in episode 2, maybe Safi is the villain, and it ended up being true. Kind of a weak villain, really. When it comes to motives, it's basically, I'm having a temper tantrum and think that I'm great because of my powers, which is kind of, I kind of hate it because, especially in the other Life is Strange games, right? The only other character out of the 3 protagonists prior to the 3 people with powers prior to this who had the kind of thought of, I'm a fucking god or whatever when it comes to my powers is God, what's his name? It's not sure. Daniel from Life is Strange 2. And the reason for
And yeah,
Daniel,
wasn't he like
he's
11?
he's like a 10-year-old kid
Yeah.
who got basically given force powers. Of course he's going to feel like he's a fucking god, and then it's the older brother's job to calm him the hell down, right? Max and Alex both saw their powers as a curse
Yeah.
and still do in the end, right? Until at least Alex learns to accept her, who she is. And Max, I guess, to a similar extent by the end of this one, right? But it's like,
Um Yeah,
well,
and it's
kind
like
of. She's like,
Safi
I've got powers, we've got to
set
deal
up.
with it, right? Safi's just,
It's like I could buy like I guess they don't do enough. Like if Chloe were to get powers, I could totally buy that she'd lash out like that
yeah,
if she could shapeshift. Like she would have totally ruined uh David's life or
yeah,
whatever.
100%, 100%,
And all
totally.
that. Like everything she could do. And I wouldn't feel much differently about Chloe for doing that than, the other Chloe stuff she does in that game.
But it
Whereas
just, yeah,
Safi here, I feel like it just wasn't set up super well because she was already kind of seeming vindictive as close as
yeah,
chapter 2.
yeah. And at the end of this chapter, this is literally all this chapter is that scene in the log cabin, in Max's house. And to be fair, I like that scene a lot. It's a good scene. I like it a lot. You
It is
learn
a
a
good
lot
scene.
about both of the characters and a bit of their motives. I really like that scene quite a bit. Um, but then you get to this Lucas scene, and this Lucas scene is fine, right? The puzzle's cool. There's some nice dialogue to be happening in it. There's this really touching moment with Darcy and the Moses in our timeline.
That's a
Uh,
really good moment, yeah.
which I really like. It's a pretty fitting moment. And then at the end of this, you have the choice of Sophie disguising herself as Lucas like she should have done fucking years ago, or going up as herself. And this is the important choice of the episode, ladies and gentlemen. So I said that she should go up as herself
Me too.
because she needs to learn that, again, I thought the reason the moral that the game is going for here is, use your powers responsibly for one, but also it's more about who you are. You are yourself. Sophie is herself. She needs to be herself, right? With
Yeah.
the Moses thing, I'm like, okay. Again, her being selfless and giving stuff up, I'm like, she's obviously, at least at this stage, not a bad person at heart, right? So
Yeah.
she needs to be more of herself, and that'll have implications later. It has fuck all change in the story, and it acts as if I chose her to fucking use her powers willy-nilly and just have a fucking blast doing it. That kind of felt inconsequential. I also think it's really funny that I could not tell you, other than from Guy turning to Goop all the way to that choice there of go and be yourself, and that I cannot tell you a single other choice in between those two places in the whole game. What the major choices were, I could not tell you for the life of me.
Guy turning to goop was beginning of episode 3.
Yeah, and that's the end of episode
Um,
4. I could not tell you what a single other choice was.
I think
In
you
that,
have one where you can like influence how Diamond approaches her argument with Finn.
oh fucking, no offense to Diamond. Diamond is like the most forgettable character in this video game. Like I genuinely forget that she exists. And then they do the thing at the end, the fucking Marvel post-credit scene. I'm like, wow, you picked the
Yeah.
worst character, like the most boring character in this game. That's crazy, dude. That's wonderful. Good job. I saw someone was theorizing, what if we'll get to the future, but Max Caulfield Returns, it's in like more of a supporting role. It's like, what if you play as Diamond? I'm like, don't. That was like not an interesting character. Please don't. Thank you. But yes,
Yeah.
I can't tell you what many of the major choices were. So you do that, Lucas gets exposed, blah
Eh,
blah blah blah.
Like
Everyone
I don't remember
celebrates.
either because in the last 2 episodes here, I made like very little notes of things. I just stopped my theory crafting because it was straightforward, and then it was, well, I can't really do anything about
Yeah.
this now.
So then, Lucas gets angry because you've done that or whatever, and he tells Safi the truth. Dun dun dun. And Safi storms off to find her mum at the Overlook or something for some fucking reason. Why was she at the
Why
Overlook?
would how would they I don't understand the time frame and how this happens.
Yeah, and why they would be at the why her mum would be at the Overlook that late at night for some no fucking again, doesn't make sense, right? But I finished this episode going, oh, I wonder what the truth is. Guess we'll find out next time. But not realizing that the truth had already been told,
It
apparently,
was just
at
that
the end
it
of the
was
episode.
apparently that like her mom is the one who killed the book,
Yeah.
which why does he know that?
Why does he know that? And why does that all of a sudden be like, I'm going to tell you the truth? Haha, you shouldn't have told me that I plagiarized some dead kid's book now, should you? I'm like, you're still the dickhead in this situation.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
know why
sure
you did
what
that.
any of that proved.
Yeah. No
Like
clue whatsoever. But
honestly, I
then,
think my notion that approached me halfway through the chapter was, "Oh, haven't heard from Yasmin in a while." My
big bad senses
chapter,
are tingling.
yeah, my chapter 4 senses are tingling.
My Mark
She had
Jefferson senses, yeah.
she had an affair with Lucas or something. I don't
I
know.
yeah,
I think that would have been more of a
I could
throat
paint
punch to
yeah,
Safi than the non-reveal of this.
paint each of you in a dark room. Do that, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you get onto the Overlook. Sophie's having a meltdown. She shoots her mum, and she starts having a fit into turning. She basically starts controlling everybody, right? Like, so the way
Yeah,
her
yeah.
shapeshifting
Everyone
works
has
is
like
it
a
kind of is perception filter, kind of. She gets them to see what they want to see, but she also, to me, it looks like she almost has kind of what's his name? Is it Magneto? Like kind of like brain power. Like she basically affects everyone's fucking
uh,
mind.
it'd be Professor X
Professor
you'd
X,
be
that's it.
thinking
Thank
of
you.
because
Yes, Magneto's fields. I'm not an X Men guy. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. I mean, her doing the little hand thing kind of looks like what Magneto does, so I
That's
can see
probably
why
where I'm
you'd
getting it from.
yeah.
Yeah. But she seems to have control. I don't think her power is just shapeshifting because she seems to be able to mass control people almost. She can.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it extends to more of a psychic thing
Yeah, psychic
beyond that
control. Yeah.
in the way that like Max had time travel and now she has reality
But yeah,
hopping.
she shoots her mum. She goes and freaks out. She starts flipping between personalities as the whole world is ending, and the storm from the original Life is Strange is showing up. Why? Why is the storm here now too? I really fucking hate this. I really hate the idea because if the idea their implications is people overusing their powers cause these storms, then why the fuck did it not happen in Life is Strange 2 or in True Colors?
True colors. Or I
I
guess
liked the here's the thing is I get the idea the
and the
whole
storm, the whole reason the storm was like a big tornado in is because of
cycle.
the butterfly effect.
Yeah, everything's yeah, it's a butterfly effect, and also tornadoes are cyclical, and the
The
whole time
butterfly
thing.
effect
It's
thing
like,
doesn't
yeah.
really work here.
So there's a load of stuff here where I'm like, oh, that's kind of lame. And anyway, they go back in the photo, and that's the end of episode 4. And I was just kind of left on a whimper. Really, I was like, oh, I guess that's what we're doing. Okay. Uh, which leads us into chapter 5, the nightmare, Bloodborne episode.
Bergen with.
Bergen with. So yeah, you go back in time, they have this kind of thing, and Savi's like, you need to shoot me, I'm a bad person, blah, 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 blah. And Max is like, no, we're going to step in the storm, because apparently that's what we do now. And then the storm becomes a nightmare again. So it was the nightmare that she experienced in episode 5 because of the is that what they're trying to imply in the original Life is Strange? Is that what they're trying to imply?
I don't
But she
know.
didn't step out on the other
And
side and make a choice in that. Like,
the
it's,
storm also actually happens too.
yeah.
So like she stepped into a tornado,
Well, in the
survived and
formed
went into a
universe at the end, the
coma.
storm still happened. They just step
Yeah,
out
that's what
on
I'm
the other
saying.
side. So
Like
it's like, ugh.
the storm was a physical entity in the eventual reality that we get.
Yeah. So anyway, most of this is you have that scene. Max decides that she can't shoot Staffy, and they step into this quote unquote storm, and it basically becomes a nightmare, which is of Safi's control. Basically, Safi is creating this nightmare scenario for everybody.
Yeah.
From the looks of it. Again, there's no real explanation for why this is important and why we're going through this and what the storm actually means and why it means that Sophie's no longer dying. Again, I still think they're going to keep that gun photo for later in if they do another one of these because there is no actual reason for the photo.
Yeah.
Now, like it's like again, it doesn't really make much sense, right? But you're going through these nightmare scenes and obviously they were controversial in the original Life is Strange. It was obviously a big contentious point. A lot of people don't like it in this one. I would personally
I think
say
this
that it's
one's
better.
better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's better and it does its job more. It's a lot creepier than the first one. There was actual moments
Yeah.
here where I was like, ooh.
The problem is that like if a if the game was more honed in and focused,
Mm-hmm.
this would be better than it was. Like if the main focus of the game and if they had just settled on focus on double world mystery, that's actually the double world mystery
I would have focused,
through and
yeah,
through.
yeah.
And all the while in between all of that, Max is unpacking her grief from the first game. This would have been far more poignant.
That's what I think. I think that there was way too many there was too many spirals. There were too many extra added plot twists that were just not needed by the end of it. And I still think you could have had a scene, a nightmare scene similar like this. It could have just been Max reflecting on trauma. It literally could have just been in the middle of an episode 3, right, of her having a nightmare and you waking up from it eventually. There's a way to circumvent this that isn't just
I was
same trope,
expecting
different day.
um the way you keep going through the doors
Yeah.
later. I was expecting it to land in like the hallway loop of Blackwell Academy from the first game.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's what I was. There were some really interesting scenes that I really enjoyed and were creepy, right? I liked some of them. I think that was the worst part. The fucking motel room bit, I was like, ugh, get this over with. This bit was very dull. The texts and stuff were really keeping me engaged. The weird texts and the diary stuff and
Yeah,
all that
I made sure to
jazz
keep checking that. I did
was
like
the
how eventually I liked the I feel like they could have gotten the point across quicker than as many cycles as you went through, but I did like that they just started disappearing the objects in the
yeah.
room
So you could
when they
stop
were
interacting
painted
with them.
on.
Yeah, yeah. Um And I think, the creepiest part for me was definitely in the bowling alley with the dark room stuff, and I was like, "That's stuff like that," because you
Oh
would
yeah.
still have trauma. Because Max is the only person that still
Who
remembers
actually
experiencing
yeah,
that who isn't dead, and
yeah.
also, no one knows that that happened to her because in the
Yeah,
timeline it didn't. She
she
couldn't
can't
say.
say anything about it because
Yeah.
it
So
didn't
she's the only one that can
happen
deal with that.
technically.
And there's some creepy stuff there. Like I say, there was the plushies were in that. I was like, I had a freaky feeling that the plushies were gonna start moving and stuff like that, like Weeping Angels or something from Doctor Who. Like, yeah,
The cherry blossom tree being, like, right outside the window too, being, like, symbolic of,
yeah,
Maya there
yeah.
while you're going through all that. Really good scenery.
Yeah, it was really creepy and I liked it. Overall, I did like the nightmare scene more than I liked the stuff, the butterfly and stuff like that going to Blackwell.
Yeah.
I was creeped out when we were kicking the doors of the stalls. I was like, what if something jumps out at you or something like that? I was like, there's some really fun moments there where I'm like, there's a lot of tension. Again, the tone was great. I think it just went on a little bit longer than it needed to, and also it was over half the episode, which was like, again, I wanted more resolution here, and this game has a lack thereof.
I guess one thing with to the benefit of this nightmare sequence is you get right into it. The first game also you spin your wheels for like
Yeah.
30 to 40 minutes.
I also don't think the double exposure mechanic really to get Sophie out of people worked that well. And also the whole idea was because I remember if you remember in the first episode, it's like no one has photos of Sophie. Sophie doesn't like taking photos of herself. She tries to cover her face and stuff like that. So, double exposure,
Yeah.
you take a photo, that's her. The awkward thing that I have is the first photo I took that I uploaded to her, I took the picture too quickly. Sophie didn't have a chance to cover her face. I just had a photo
Oh
of
yeah, she
her.
was just
Yeah.
holding the book like right here.
Like, I just perfectly covered. So
She
every
didn't
time it was,
cover
yeah, so every
anything.
time they were trying to make a big deal of, like, her mum posts a photo of, if you ever get one with a face on it, I'm like, it's right there. Like, it's like mission accomplished. I just thought it was kind of silly, you know. And again, how does her power work? Taking a photo, taking a photo, double exposing, removes her kind of effect. But then here we go. This is why I said to bring it back up. Gwen's footage in episode 2. She has a recording of Sophie, so it's not to do with the technology or anything about it, because there's
Yeah,
actual video
because
evidence of her shapeshifting and being fine. So again, I'm like, I don't
yeah, it's
understand.
weird. Like they do seem to break their own rules here because you'd think that
She can only do people that she
if you
knows.
alter the cognition of
Yeah.
someone's brain when you're looking at her, it- you can't do that to a camera.
Oh.
It'd be like catching someone being a vampire because they don't show up in a mirror, you
Well,
know?
there's the footage, and I didn't watch the footage, but I went back and watched the footage that you can get from Gwen because I let her burn it, 'cause whatever. And
Oh yeah, yeah. I just stood there with her for
yeah, I
that,
stood there
so
with her. But
I
yeah,
forgot about that.
it is footage of her, so you can see it. So it's like again, they're just breaking their own rules there. Where I'm like, what is the point of the double exposure? You get the piece. You're trying to bring this pieces of Sophie together, and they're all in a different person or
It's like
whatever.
I get
But
the idea. I just don't think it comes across
no,
super
I
well.
don't either. I think it was kind of weak. And then you have that conversation. The last piece of Sophie is in Max. That's what'll get them out of here. You have that kind of conversation. You have that God's conversation, and that was when I groaned. That was the moment when I went, "Oh, we're doing
I was like,
this."
"Oh, don't do
I'm
this."
like,
Oh,
"No, we're doing this. We're doing the
yeah.
cliche of we're the same, but I'm going mad with
Except I'm a
power."
megalomaniac.
Yeah. And then, so I was like, "Oh, we're doing this, aren't we?" She's gonna be the quote unquote baddie. Um, and it's like, very infamous coded in the way of it's there's them and then there's us. And it's like we're better than them. Let's go. And she's like, and she frames it
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
We make the
yeah.
joke
This is
about
another
Warren.
thing where
We watched we made the joke about Warren. I think Sophie is also a fan of the Joe Rogan Experience because she's going mad with power, and then she's saying, "I just want to find other people," and it's like I just want to experiment and figure it out. Where in reality she's like, "I'm better than everybody. I want to find a fucking group of us so we can take over the world."
this also makes the accidental Magneto reference very uh fitting
I
actually
mean, with
because
Max with a little ragtag of students at university at the end, I guess, yeah, she's like Charles Xavier, dude. Like, yeah, she's like,
yeah,
It's pretty
Yeah,
apt, really. Yeah.
we've got narrative-based CW X-Men
Yeah.
for this next game, and it's weird, and it's not something I was ever asking for.
Basically, it's just kind of, yeah, it's just absolutely bizarre, right? So it's like, again, you have that final choice. You're back on the Outlook. You've pieced off. You're back together. No one shot each other, and she has this really fucking, you know, dumb dialogue about blah 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 blah. We're better than that, that stuff like that. And her mum's there bleeding on the floor, and she's got no fucking remorse or anything to do with that, which I'm like, weirdo. And then they give you the final choice of the game, which is, do you stand with her or do you tell her that she needs to go on her own? And I thought, don't know about you, Hunter, that this was not a choice, that the obvious answer was you let her go alone, that you can't agree
Yeah.
with her because of the differences. Get to the fucking end. 68 of you fucking said you'd join it. Are you stupid? I've seen some people explain going,
People who play these games
they're
are just
dumb. They're
really
fucking brain dead.
susceptible to being emotionally blackmailed. Like, we're friends, you can't do this to me. I'd be like, no, no, I can't just
Yeah.
let you become a supervillain because I
No,
said I would.
I heard a couple of people. I will give maybe 15% of people the benefit of the doubt, because I've heard a lot of people saying that they didn't trust her, but they thought it was a better idea to be on her good side so they could keep an eye out on her. That's what they thought that Max was thinking. And then they get to the Moses thing, and Moses apparently, if you don't do it, is really angry with you because you've just sided with her, and she's, planning to do, So a lot of people, I think, got duped because they were thinking the game was smarter, as if you were going, "Oh yeah, I'll be a spy on the inside." You know how you say to the cop, "Yeah, I'll pass you information," and then you say to Moses, "I wasn't gonna do that shit. I'm just duping him," you know?
Oh, I just told him to suck it for that decision.
Yeah, So they kind of plant that one of the choices is that earlier on in the game, and I think some people were like, "Yeah, I'll say that I'm friends with her so that we can keep an eye on her," but really I don't agree. And I'm like, the
This
game's not that the
that's
game's not that
that's
smart.
perfectly fine in theory if it wasn't the end.
Yeah, and I'm just like, how could you side with her? She's an absolute,
Yeah.
loon. And then, everyone, Moses and everyone, I knew I made the right choice when Moses was saying, stuff like that, and you get, and the game wraps itself up very fucking quickly after that. The game just like, yeah, fuck it, get us out of here. And that ending kind of annoys me. There's the nice moment with,
I liked walking through the wreckage of the campus.
yeah, talking to
I thought
like
that was
everybody. Yeah, those a couple of things you could see.
unpacking all of that was all right. I think that in spite of how weirdly the reconvergent timelines thing is.
Yeah. Lucas gets away with it scot-free, basically, and is just writing a bullshit apology, so that's nice. Good for him. Glad to see that he's living his best life. Yeah, because the timelines basically merge. So Sophie's alive again, and everyone remembers both memories, which is dumb. I fucking hate this. I really do.
Yeah,
I
I don't
think, if
understand.
anything, it would have made sense if evil Sophie came into our world and then shapeshifted away, and everyone believes that she's still dead, but she's actually alive and she's in our world.
Yeah,
That's, I
yeah,
think,
that
would have
could
been a
have been
much stronger fucking
that
plot point. But
would have been a good post-credit stinger or something.
yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
it's like they made a who done it. God, Square Enix
and
really
the
good
answer
at
was
making.
fucking nobody. Who
Yeah,
done it?
Square Enix is
Nobody.
great this year at publishing games that have questions that should be a binary answer, and they make options that don't make sense.
We're pretty fluid and accepting on this podcast, but when it comes to ending decisions in video games, I want a binary answer. That's the only time that I will accept it.
Like the Final Fantasy VII earlier this year should have been one of two things. It was neither, and then
yeah, but
this should have been one of something.
I
It was
think,
nothing.
yeah. Then you get to the end, and I think it's interesting. Amanda, you have conversations with Amanda and Vin has basically moved on to whatever his name is, uh,
Reggie.
Reggie. I'm like, that's cute. And then Amanda said to me something along the lines of,
I don't know
I'm
about
glad that we're
you
just
with
friends or
that
whatever.
relationship between the two of them,
Yeah,
but until the scene in the nightmare bowling alley or whatever,
yeah,
it seemed incredibly one-sided from Reggie's perspective.
yeah. I think it was. I think it was. I think Vin will fuck anything with a pulse, to be honest. But I think I think they bonded in that moment. I didn't even find Loretta, by the way, in the bowling alley. I did not find Loretta.
Neither did I. I missed
Okay,
her.
cool. Um, but yeah, so with the way they frame both of those though, it's like they paired Vin off with Reggie, and then uh Amanda was like, I'm kind of glad that we didn't because I don't know how I'd cope with this. In my head, I was like, are they just making Max like, I don't know if I've not played with the relationship, so I don't see what happens if you pick every of those relationships yet. But I'm like, are they just trying to frame her up to be single again so she can move on to the next game when they bring her back so they don't have to worry about baggage again?
Maybe,
Is that
I
what
don't
they were
know.
trying to do there? It felt weird because in my
It's
head, she's doing this speech at the end with all these fuckers around her, right?
yeah,
And one, I'm really annoyed that we don't hear the speech. It's like this is such a cheap ending where they, there's the one nice moment where Moses says to Max, "Do you think you'll ever return to Arcadia Bay?" And she does like this kind of bittersweet kind of smile, like that she's starting to finally, accept what happened and go, "Yeah, maybe I will." I was like, I really liked that bit, but then it moves on to this fucking speech that we don't hear any of that just kind of feels very CW, as if like, like we've got to do this thing.
yeah.
And I'm looking at all these people and I'm like, I can tell you for a fact that when we get back to this, because we can and ah if they're going to do whatever, but I think with the fact that Square has not even tried to sell Life is Strange before, but has sold all their other Western IPs, I think this game makes enough money when it comes around that we probably will see another Life is Strange after this, and they
At
probably
least as far
will.
as like sales to cost
Yeah, I think we will get
margins.
another one of these with Max, unless like Deck Nine goes bust or something like that.
No.
I think that the chances are we will get the sequel to this. But I was looking at all these characters and I'm like, if we are going to do one of these where we actually have a fucking straight up sequel to this as well, the only person that's going to actually carry forward is Moses because he was friends with Sophie. All the rest of you are fucking staying here and are not coming back. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah,
nice to see you, but they'll give us new romance options and move on, dude. They didn't bother to bring Chloe back, so they'll never bring you guys back. Have a good one. Nice meeting you,
yeah,
Reggie.
yeah.
See you in a bit.
Although it would be hysterical.
Yeah.
Imagine if those two had the possibility of actually carrying over, but Chloe doesn't. It'd be
Yeah, that
funny.
one it made me
It'd be
laugh.
it'd be cosmically hilarious. But I think the idea of like pairing one of them off, it's
Hmm.
something that like Dragon Age has done in the last or in the previous games, where it's like if you don't romance one of the options, they'll like link up with one of the other
Fire
party
Emblem does
members or
that.
whatever.
The end of every
Yeah,
Fire Emblem game, it's like this is what happened to every character that lived in the future, and it's like obviously
yeah.
if you
So
went
it's
down a
like, oh,
romance path, you'll be married, but then all the other characters, are like, oh, this is what happened to them. These two ended up married, and you're like, what? Okay, fair enough. It's just like a fun little extra thing. I like that.
yeah, it's like a cool little instance of the world interacting with itself
And I
in
think it
a
makes
way
sense for the like, but
for the two of them. Yeah, and I
but
think
it
it makes
wraps.
sense
Like I
for
say,
Amanda
that
to
whole
just
speech, just like the Arcadia Bay bit. Like, here's the thing: is again, if we had an actual Max story here, and it was that murder, and she comes to finally come to acceptance. That moment where when Moses asks her, "Do you think you'll ever return to Arcadia Bay?" and she just smiles and says, "Am I like And then that's the ending, and it's like it plays off with your Life is Strange depressing music. So like, I'm like, I can see that in a world where that works, and I'm like, fucking incredible! Like, round of applause, great job, Deck Nine, you fucking smashed it. All the other convoluted junk, and then having it end with this like kind of X-Men kind of, look, these are my friends. I'm going to tell you about my powers, and this is how we're going to stop the big bad other fucker that we don't even know if they're like what they're doing, because they're doing their classic conspiracy theory thing of just like, I'm just questioning the normal. Like, she's not even saying that she's going to do something
yeah.
huge yet. She's just like, I'm just saying that I'm looking at options. Like, like it just, the way that ends, and it's just like, it's like, I'm just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Now, when I saw Max Caulfield will return, I was just like,
I was like, oh come on,
I
audibly
I
as I
hate to
was
say that I
sitting
predicted
there.
that, Hunter. I hate to say that I predicted that because I think I mentioned to you a couple of weeks before the game came out. I'm like, do you think they're just gonna make this the Max series again? And
It seems like it's going in a drastically different direction than what it like. I don't understand how you're gonna introduce all of this
yeah.
and still chain it to a narrative game.
We're gonna talk a little bit about the future, and to be honest, I don't care. I'm plagiarizing myself here. I'm gonna do a Lucas, and I'm gonna steal something before I've even published it. Right? I'll read what is currently, which is not. Maybe I'll change this paragraph because I've decided that it is terrible. But I'll read you the
Smells.
last paragraph currently of the review as of writing that might have changed. This is um There's nothing blatantly wrong with double exposure, but the cracks in its narrative show that if they are planning to do what they have begun setting up for the future, they need to understand what truly makes Life is Strange so special. It's not about the powers, villains, or massive choices that make these games work, but the characters and tone. Life is Strange does a wonderful job of zooming in on the ordinary thrown into extraordinary situations. They're about love, loss, and taking in the atmosphere. The power isn't what matters, it's the effect it has on the characters, and what they learn about themselves in the process. They may still pull this narrative back to what makes the series so special, but I feel like some of these core traits are lost in double exposure. And I still stand by it, is this game, to me, the whole idea they had was, what if Max meets somebody else without powers? And they didn't think about, really in Life is Strange, you get this cool gimmick of having somebody with powers, but at the end of the day, the power is just a means to get to the core of the characters, and this game just kind of skips it and just makes the main focus a character whose personality is, I got powers,
Yeah.
big boy. Like, that is the, like, and it's just like, it just doesn't work. I don't care about Sophie. I still don't care in a negative or a positive or a neutral way. I have no inclination towards Sophie because they don't give me a reason to. There's nothing
Yeah.
really there other than I have powers and I'm going to use them for bad things. Tee hee hee, skip off into the sunset. We don't have those moments of reflection in this game. You have a couple of situations where you sit down and talk to her, but there's nothing really that actually gets to the root of it. It feels very generic, which is weird because Life is Strange has always gone about its situations in, often campy, sometimes indie ways, but they never really just take the normal route. And it just
Yeah,
seems a
it's
bit bland. It's missing something.
yeah, and the annoying thing is like, if it had honed in and been more focused, this could have easily been the best one in the series.
100%. 100%. There is the stuff here where if they had just made a Max Caulfield game where murder mystery and two timelines, heck, even have the plot twist be that the killer is an alternate universe Max. Have that, keep that stuff in there, but stop there. Stop where that plot unravels that it is another Max and try and work that in and try and, go with one big twist, stick to it, and don't add another 5, and then don't make the
Yeah.
ending of the game not be a resolution to what you've set up, Like, have it
Yeah,
so
because
some, yeah, like, it's
it's
bizarre.
because they start like chapter 2 asks a question that they don't really answer,
No, they never answer it.
and rather than answer it, they just go off and tell a new story that is
Hunter,
X-Men.
Hunter, Hunter, you're just reading my right. Here's another line from my conclusion to the review. Its narrative takes a nosedive. Characters' motives become sloppy, and it stops answering questions and wastes its time setting up a future for the series filled with uncertainty. That is genuinely, like, it's what it does. It spends the first half of the game asking you 26 questions, and it gives you the answers to 3 of them, and then goes, oh, what? There was over 23 questions? Oh, who cares? Let's go and look at the future, baby. The Max Caulfield cinematic universe, am I right? Shall we bring Alex Chen into this bad bitch? Like, what are we doing? Like, I'm just like, oh, God.
That'll be how Sophie loses, because the empath thing also vaguely psychic.
Here's the problem here's the problem with what they were setting up here is, I'm perfectly fine. Well, I would love to see more Max, but here's the thing is, it's like, I'm hesitant on the future of Life is Strange because in my heart, I would more than, if this was a standalone Max story that had ended in a way that I was like, that's fantastic, and I'm like, I'd prefer you
Yeah,
to
if
do
this
something
was
new, but if you wanted to bring Max back and just do different, unique stuff, but keep them all self-isolated and just quintessentially Life is Strange, I would have
yeah.
been fine with it. But you've gone with this halfway house where it's no longer this kind of isolated incident, and you're trying to drag it over into, like, villain territory, because now there isn't, you're right, Hunter, there is no mystery for the future, because if there is something, it's going to be to do with Safi.
Yeah. And it's
Or,
like,
even worse, we're going to go down the Assassin's Creed route where it is a new character, and then we're just waiting for the halfway point where Max or Safi shows up, and then it just becomes about them again. Like,
yeah,
I don't think
like
there is a winning situation here. Like, I will play whatever is next, and I hope they strike goal
Yeah,
with it and they figure
I
out
will
what didn't
play
work.
whatever is next until it's so bad that I'm like, "Ah, I don't want it anymore," kind of
And
thing.
it's like I love
Like, I
Max. I
liked
love
this one
Max. I love
enough.
Hannah Tell to death, right? I do. I genuinely do. And I hope that they do learn from the mistakes that they've made with this game. And I do hope that they take the sincere criticism to heart and learn from that. I think there's plenty
Yes,
to
the
learn
things
from
about
it.
the actual
Yeah,
flaws in the story,
the
not just,
actual
"I
flaws in the
can't believe you
story.
broke up I can't believe you broke up Chloe."
Yeah. I mean, I think there's plenty to learn here, and at the end, like in my heart of hearts, I don't think this is a bad game. I think that if you know, with I'm still extremely passionate about it, which shows that it's doing something right. Because I am, I've not walked up to the bar and been completely indifferent the whole way. Because that's the worst case scenario: is you just walk up and you feel indifference towards everything. Right, I would
Yeah.
much rather have a visceral negative reaction than a neutral one sometimes because at least
Even,
you
like,
get something
it was
out of
even
it.
good enough so that, like, days later, you're still annoyed at the fact that they didn't, you know, stick the landing.
Yeah, I'm still annoyed, and it's like it sucks because I think someone at Kind of Funny said this, but it's like any other time a shoe in for a Life is Strange game to be in my top 5 game of the year or top 10 game of the year, and I'm looking at Double
Oh, yeah.
Exposure, and I'm like,
Blessings
you're
of that,
lucky
yeah.
2024 only has 10 games I've played this year because I don't think it would be fitted. Like if this came out last year, I don't think it would be in
Yeah,
my top 10. I don't think it would
yeah,
be.
like, I don't know yet, to be honest with you,
And
for
I still
me,
don't think
because I've
I'm still sitting there because I'm talking about top tens or whatever because we get close to the end of the year and we're looking at stuff like that for hot gamers only. I'm sitting there and I'm going, I jokingly, you guys did top sixes last year, and then I was an
yeah.
arsehole and was like, I'm gonna do a top 10 because I play so many fucking video games, guys. Look at me. I go, I'm fabulous. And then this year, I'm like, I don't think there's a point of doing a top 10 if I've only played 12 games and I hated 2 of them and I like 10 of them. I think
Yeah.
I will be dropping it down to a top 6 or a top 5 this year because I haven't played that many games.
I don't think
And I
Kyle's gonna campaign for a 6th slot this year.
Yeah, and I don't personally think that this will, and it sucks because I love so much of this game. I really do. The soundtrack is fantastic.
Oh,
It
man,
might be one of
soundtrack
my
rules.
favorite Life is Strange soundtracks. I think this one and the original are probably my two favorite Life is Strange soundtracks, and that goes a long way because Life is Strange music, fucking excellent. The tone
Yeah.
in this game is better than any of the other games in the franchise. It's not even close. It's visually stunning. Its performances are fantastic, and I really love the characters. The first half of this game is some of the best Life is Strange I've ever played. The second half of this game makes it really hard to justify playing it for the first half sometimes, and
Yeah,
that's where I'm struggling. This is
and
like the
it's
most
annoying because it's
polarizing,
like
hesitant. Like when I'm sitting at a 3, it's not because it's an Assassin's Creed 3 where it's just all mediocre. It's the fact that there's so much good and there's so much bad that you get like you're gonna fall somewhere in the middle at the end of the day. I feel it's hard,
it's
man.
annoying because like double timeline mysteries. I've seen it work. I love the Somnium Files games.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
it's not impossible.
100%, man. Like it
Uh,
sucks. It really does.
and
This
it's
was
like
one of my
crazy
most
too
anticipated
because
games of the
like
year.
even aside from personal top fives, when we do the like award show
Yeah.
episode at the end of the year, like best narrative could still be anything at this point. Usually it's like a slam dunk that it'd be like, even if I like something else, I'm willing to concede that Life is Strange is good enough for me to be okay with giving
And the
it
thing
the
is, there's
win.
still some really great stuff here. It's like that's the problem is there's so much good here that it's like I am not sitting there shaking my fist wishing this game hadn't been made. I really
Yeah.
don't. Because like I say, it was a joy to have Max back again, even if it was for a short period. And I'd be more than willing for them to again give it another go, but I don't think this is the way to go about it. I really don't think this is the way to go about it.
Yeah.
Because what were they going to do? Are they going to keep with the same double exposure mechanic,
Which was,
or are powers going to fucking change again?
is she gonna just start time traveling willy nilly in the next game?
I think what sucks is there isn't
Because
a
the
resolution. There's
timeline,
no
yeah,
resolution here. I think what sucks is I feel now, and for better or worse, Deck Nine. For better or worse, I feel like, if this sells enough and it gets greenlit, that they have to do another one of these because I don't care if the ending to the next one is good or bad. I need a fucking ending because this isn't an ending. Going,
yeah,
will you know, if you had just had, that, them falling out or whatever, different ending. Moses smiling and saying, "Will you ever go to Arcadia Bay again?" And her finally feeling healed enough to go, "You know what, I might," and then ending it there, fine. Would have been perfectly fine and gone, "You know what? That's an ending, we'll take it." But then you had to do the bit at the end where Max Caulfield will return. Look at me, look. Post-credit scene of Sophie recruiting Diamond because she's had a nosebleed. Apparently everyone has a nosebleed. That was just a Max specific thing. No one else had nosebleeds. Why are they making that out to be like that's the thing
Yeah,
where you
like
get a power?
like the backfire for Alex was the emotion comes back like
Yeah.
tenfold in isolation later,
Yeah, similar to
which
Daniel.
is
Daniel's thing
a
was that he could,
million
yeah.
times worse.
Daniel's problem was that it fatigued him a lot
Yeah.
because obviously moving stuff, and he got angry a lot because of like the pent up aggression or whatever. But no one else has nosebleeds. That's like a Max specific thing, and it's like Diamond had no inclination of having powers. There's no reason.
I don't even know what it would be,
Same.
or when she would have
And
ever
doing
used
like
it, or why she would have
it feels like such
nosebleed.
infamous kind of like idea again, where it's like that class system kind of, we're soups and you're not. It's just
Unless it like the dumb twist would be that Diamond's the one who was creating the doors to the other worlds.
mm,
But like
I don't know.
that's the only thing I can think of, and that still has a lot of problems.
I have a feel there's I have a feeling that there's two places that they can take it with this. They either go Sophie turns big bad and trying to do bad things, and Max has to try and stop it, which I think sounds extremely boring and not like a Life is Strange game. Or they're going to try and walk into the path of trying to figure out what the reason is behind people having powers, and I think that is
Which
also
I also
equally
don't want
uninteresting.
because
Because no one
like
cares. That's what I tried to
yeah,
mean, where it's like, it's not
it's
about
incidental.
powers. It's not about the fact that Max has powers is irrelevant to life. It's the experience that the characters go through during that. It's a part of the game, sure, but it's not the part where I'm like, oh, my favorite part of Life is Strange is the fact that I
Like
get to hold the L2 button and go, "Grrr," like all the way back to
like
20 seconds
yeah,
in the
if you
past.
would have take the time travel out of the first Life is Strange game, you
Yeah,
would have a choice-based game that probably ends with David smacking Jefferson in the face with the tripod or something.
yeah.
And that would
Or
have been fine.
better yet, you've already done it. It's called Life is Strange Before the Storm, and it worked, and it worked pretty well. And I am pretty happy with that game as a project, and I think that it worked well enough. And I think I think this could have worked well enough at bringing her back like that and having her experience trauma and go through it. And like I say, it just feels unsatisfying where it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think that you have, like, in my heart of hearts is like, if they are going to make another Life is Strange, there'd be a part of me that would be equally annoyed that if they were just like, yeah, we're just going to do a new character, because there'd be a part of me playing that entire fucking game going, I'm waiting for the ball to drop because I won't believe
Yeah.
them anymore. They can go, you know what? We don't think it was working. We changed our minds. Here's a standalone adventure. And I'll be sitting there in episode 4 going, where's the part where Safi shows up then, dickheads? Because I'm going to be waiting for it now, the whole time. Like, this is it.
Yeah. And the
This is what
annoying
I'm going
thing
to do.
is like if they had buttoned this up in the singular game, I think Safi would have had potential to get her own before the storm kind of deal,
Yeah,
where you just
100%. Where you play
traipse
through her
around and
childhood. Yeah, how'd she deal with her
yeah,
powers herself? Exactly. Who knows? Maybe we'll be playing as Safi in the next one. Who knows? Like, but I just
but still the
and
key
this is years
problem of
away.
that
This is the thing.
is
We're talking about something that is not going to happen until the second half of Trump's
2027.
of
Yeah.
Trump's presidency at this rate, right? Like, because it took them 3 years. And Hannah Tell in a recent interview was talking about how they've been working on this since 2021,
Yeah.
before True Colors even came out. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
hopefully, if Deck Nine is smart enough, maybe they will have already started working on what's next. But even then, it's still going to be another 3 years. And here's the thing, right? Is maybe it'll be like, who knows how long? Like, this one had had a tumultuous development where things changed at the last minute. I think you can very much tell by the way that the story
Yeah.
went round up. And True Colors had this small, like True Colors took 4 years, but COVID happened in the middle of it, so I think that was a problem that
Yeah.
happened, right? So realistically, yeah, 2.5, maybe 3 years they could make this. Realistically, I think they made Before the Storm in 2 because it was 2015 to 2017. So it's like, yeah, probably 3 years. And it's like, will people in 3 years' time really be? I'll be happy to see Max again, but I'm skeptical about everything now.
I
Like
will
I am.
probably, honestly, at the end of hypothetically 3 years from now, I'll be like, oh, cool, another Life is Strange game. I might have forgotten what the last 2 chapters of this game were. Honestly,
Well, yeah, because as soon as they do that reveal of Max Caulfield again, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't know, it kind of, like I say, I don't regret that they did this game. I'm very happy to see, I'm grateful that the one thing that they didn't fuck up was Max herself. They did not fuck Max
yeah,
up, and I'm happy that we got to see her again. There is also a
and
part
like
of me that
a
feels like this
strong
is
main character is able to lead you through a lot of
meh.
malarkey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it also does feel like a classic Square Enix. We're doing the thing that you want, fans. Eat your slop. This is the Max Caulfield saga now. And I'm like, can you at least make it a good saga then? Can you, I don't know. Can you make it be a thing? This is a thing that here's a little tip from me, Deck 9. Here's a little thing. Do a game with Max again. And if you've not got a good idea of what this Safi shit is, do yourself a favor. Make that a secondary plot point. Don't even fucking, mention it in the background or whatever. Just have a standalone story where it's a slightly impactful. Don't care. Fuck it off and halfway
yeah,
through. Fuck it off halfway through. Have Max
yeah,
have Max experience a thing and have the first 2 episodes have you believe that Safi is involved, then you figure out that she's not involved at all whatsoever, and it's actually surprise a standalone Life is Strange game, and then I'll be chanting the Game of the Year bell for 2027.
have at the beginning of chapter 3, have Safi touch a time travel ghost of herself and disappear.
Yeah. Have the first 5 minutes of this game be Max going to the photo of shooting Safi and just shooting her and then walking away. And then there we go, perfect, problem solved. I didn't even hate Safi until the fucking final chapter. That's the problem. Again, is
Yeah,
likable enough character.
yeah, like she has a good dynamic with Max right up until the end, where she's like, "Ah, I'm a god," and I'll be like, "Ah,
Ah,
sus."
oh well, that's that, I guess. And with that, that is our Life is Strange double exposure spoiler cast. How long is Gladiator 2, Hunter?
Oh, I don't
Gladiator
know.
2 length. We are
I
finding
forget that
out.
that's a movie that's actually come out
Ladies and
already.
gentlemen, it is currently scheduled to be 2 hours and 28 minutes long. We are longer than Gladiator 2, ladies and gentlemen. We
Oh,
did it. I
baby, by a
promised you,
solid
and
20 minutes.
we promised you an epic, and you got yourselves an epic. That has been our ultimate spoiler cast with Life is Strange double exposure. What will we do a spoiler cast of next? Who knows? At this point, could be anything.
We don't even know what the next game we're all gonna be
Playing at the
playing.
same time is.
Yeah, story wise,
Maybe
anyway.
it'll be a metaphor spoiler cast 6 months later than
Maybe,
it should be. Who knows?
but it'll
But
be 6 months long.
all I know is that if you made it this far, we're incredibly grateful. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for 2 hours and 43 minutes. We hope that this was an interesting enough conversation, and hopefully it was a bit different from a lot of the other conversations that have been going on about this game, because I feel like a lot of people have been touching upon the same points and getting angry at all the reasons, and I'm like, we can have a civilized discussion. There's a lot of good here.
Yeah,
There's quite a bit of bad as well, but there's a lot of good.
yeah. There's still things to take away from it that are positive, even if
For sure, and I hope it doesn't
it's a
discourage
yeah.
Deck 9 from trying new things. Like I say, my biggest tip for Deck 9 for a sequel, or just another Life is Strange game, set your, set your level of, story and shrink it. You've got 5 episodes. If you're only going to do 5 episodes, take the scale of your story, scale it down again. Have 1 plot twist, not 3.
Yeah, don't go over the scope of what your story needs.
Because here's the thing: there's only 1 plot twist to the original Life is Strange, right? They did not do well, actually, there's 2, I guess. But there's the one at the end of episode 2, where you go to the other timeline where Chloe's was in a crash. Yeah,
3.
Beginning of episode 3. But that was also resolved within 40 minutes, right? You can do little mini twists like that. Perfectly fine with that. But there was one big twist.
There's a difference
Strange.
between that and
Dialing it up to 11 every time. Yeah, 100%. But I know you can do it. I love Before the Storm and I love True Colors. You know, it's like,
Yeah, True
and this
Colors
game
was
is
great.
good. This game, remember, this game's got a 72, right? It is a good video game. It is a decent video game. It's not a bad video game. It is just probably at the lower end of a franchise, which is usually excellent. So,
Yeah.
you know, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. And I
I'd
hope
still
this
say it's on the, positive half of like
this genre.
walking narrative games. I'd still
Definitely.
take this over your average Telltale game.
Yeah, 100%. I don't disagree. And I hope it doesn't discourage anybody at Deck 9 from doing stuff in the future. Same with Hannah Tell and stuff like that. Hannah, you were great. You were one of the shining beacons of this game anyway. You were one of the things that was consistently excellent. So
Yeah.
don't you dare let anybody's criticism impact you in the slightest. You were fabulous.
For sure.
And so are you soundtrack composers and graphic designers and artists and all the other actors and everybody. It's just a couple of you writers, listen here. Set your expectations lower. Come on. It's fine. One twist was fine. That's all we're asking. One twist. There's more than one coming for you. That's it. That's our Spoilercast. Thank you ever so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back for our regular scheduled programming as normal on Monday. But until then, thank you for hanging out. Have an awesome rest of your day. And we'll see you soon, I guess. Bye.
Toodaloo.